Hey everybody, Madeleine here to talk about May 2026, and I'm going to call this month the month of radical transformations because not only does it begin with a full moon, a revelatory full moon in the sign of Scorpio, Pluto's about to go retrograde, Mercury's going to enter Taurus. This is all in the first week of May, squaring Pluto, all the while that we have Mars squaring Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is about beliefs, religion, and higher philosophy, right? Mars is about ending things. It's about conflict. It's about bold initiation, radical action. So many people will have big radical transformations in their belief as a result of something that the full moon in Scorpio revealed, some sort of truth. Also, with Mercury making a square to Pluto is going to bring more information that completely radically changes our minds. Big more sort of hidden truths coming up. That's just the first week. The second week, we're going to have some really beautiful things happening in the second week of May, or the third week, you could say. We're going to have on the 16th, we're going to have a very auspicious exalted new moon in the sign of Taurus, which will bring a lot of abundance and feelings of stability in romance and finances. Taurus is the bull, which represents Wall Street. So I'm seeing things stabilize with that new moon for many people financially. Then we're going to have Mercury is going to move into the sign of Gemini, its own sign. So it's going to be very effective when it's in Gemini. So our Gemini houses, our Mercury houses are going to feel a bounty and positive movement forward. Then we're going to have Venus is going to move into the sign of Cancer the same day that Mars moves into the sign of Taurus, making that square to Pluto. So the square to Pluto could be pretty intense and cause some might say big conflicts in the world and perhaps more conflict. However, it is making a sextile to Venus, and Venus is in its strength in the sign of Cancer. Venus in the sign of Cancer is nurturing, empathic, loving. It's about home, family, and making a sextile to Mars as it squares Pluto. I think perhaps that square to Pluto ends a conflict. As you know, I always like to see things on the bright side. So I'm anticipating that transit to Venus causes peace, and that square to Mars ends a war because Mars is going to be in the sign of Venus. And Venus is in its very positive energy and making a very positive angle. And when Venus is in its strength, peace prevails. Peace is a higher potential for peace. So I like the second half of May. The first half of May might be challenging for many if you're not already aware that a lot of what we see in the world is not really the truth, as it were, in what is presented to the public. So we're going to be getting mass awakenings, mass shocking shifts in beliefs. Don't forget, Uranus is at the early degree. I think it's still at 0 degrees in the sign of Uranus, in the sign of Gemini, which again brings shocking, surprising, mind-blowing information. So I forgot to talk about Pluto going retrograde, right? So Pluto, as a result of all this sort of revelatory information that's coming out in the beginning of May, Pluto then goes retrograde on the 7th and initiates a period of internal transformation as a result of all this knowledge and information that's coming out. And Pluto is going to be in retrograde until November. So from now until November, we're going to be processing and recalibrating on the inside as a result of all the sort of knowledge or all the revelations that are coming out at the beginning of May. So that's going to be interesting for a lot of us. So we're changing on the inside as a result of what happens at the beginning of May. Now, at the end of May, we have a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius, which is about beliefs. So that is going to be a part of the story. It's sort of going to wrap everything up, as it were, because we're going to have more revelations. Full moon bring clarity about We're going to have new shifts in our beliefs. We're going to form new beliefs that are as a result of the old beliefs dying. So humanity with the Mars squaring Jupiter is evolving into higher beliefs, into higher, more truths, more philosophical, universal truths. All right, Aries, this month begins with that stellium of planets in your first house, which means you're still in the process of initiating a big new chapter. And with Mars there, you're taking quite a lot of action and perhaps getting involved in some conflicts because it's squaring Jupiter in your fourth house. Perhaps you're in some family disputes or disputes around your property and real estate. And also, perhaps you are ending and deciding to end a long held belief or religious belief of your ancestors, and you're ending an old way that your family, the beliefs that were imposed upon you by your family, perhaps. But you are in a energetic place and perhaps working out a lot with Mars in your first house, but you're definitely having a lot of energy. And as Mars is away now from Saturn, things feel less blocked. Saturn is making sure you follow some rules. You're disciplined, you're taking care of yourself, and you are having to slow down in certain areas where you're wanting to be impulsive. And Saturn is sort of slowing that down for you, which is for your higher good. So then we have, and also this conflict in your family or property, real estate will resolve, but you might be in the thick of it still at the beginning of May. Then we have Mercury is going to move into your second house. Now we're also going to have a new moon in your second house. I forgot to talk about the full moon, but which I'll get back to that in a minute. But Mercury is going to be in your second house. And the new moon is going to be there. So there are some big new beginnings happening for you in your finances and in a way that you financially support yourself. I just want to go back to that full moon in Scorpio in your eighth. May bring intensity around relationships, finances. You may discover a debt that you didn't know was there. You may discover your partner is cheating on you. That can sometimes happen in a full moon in the ninth. You can also just be triggered around fears about your finances, and there isn't anything really to be afraid of. So this full moon will bring out some deep issues of fear and perhaps problems in your finances that then create a flow and resolve the problem. So just bear with the moon for a week or so. Full moons sort of last a week before and a week after. So um, whatever shows up in this full moon will then open up your life for better frequency, better energy for yourself in your finances, relationships, and create a flow back in your life. Now we have back to that Mercury in your second, which rules your third, which we have Venus there and we have Uranus there, which means you are coming up with some fabulous new ideas. Now there's a nice angle from Venus to Saturn at the beginning of month, giving you some really good breakthroughs around media, social media, ideas around running a business, and there's a flow going there. So there's an opening of abundance for you through that third house. Perhaps you initiate a new social media platform, um, but you are finding a nice, shall we say, support through this conflict with Saturn through that third house. So if you're having conflict with government over property permits or whatever, the Venus in your third making a nice angle to that Saturn is a solution and abundance sort of opening up, the situation opening up and flowing more to cause you long-term stability of this new chapter that you're beginning. And Uranus in your third house for the next 7 years is going to bring you radical new ideas for businesses and new knowledge, new information. That that causes you to either want to communicate more, write, start media projects, and perhaps initiate like new social media networks. And it'll change your life. This is going to be an area of your life sort of feeling a little bit uneasy and unstable, but when it leaves in 7 years, you'll be very stable there. So perhaps you're radically changing and shifting your website, changing your social media platform, changing your ideas a lot. but this will stabilize eventually because these new beginnings that are starting for you are 29-year cycle is going to bring you stability. So try not to feel unstable or insecure. This could bring you a bit of an ADD experience too, like constantly changing your minds because Aries are pretty impulsive anyway, so you might be getting radical shifts and changes in your ideas all the time. But Venus is there, sextiling Saturn, bringing you a positive, shall we say, result to some of that conflict involving the Mars to your Jupiter. Then we are going to have a square from Mercury to Pluto, which is in your 11th house, and Pluto's going to go retrograde. So you're going to be re-evaluating who the tribe group or humanitarian efforts that are really supportive of your soul, who you are on an internal level. You're reforming because of what's happening in the beginning of May, and information and knowledge from that full moon and the beliefs shifting around that fourth house. You may be ending certain connections, certain tribe groups might be leaving your life here in order to align more with the beliefs that you are evolving into. And this new moon that's coming up in the middle of the month on the 16th brings you powerful new beginnings in a financial opportunity or a because some of these because of the shifting belief you now have. And plus, with going on in your third house here with new ideas, you suddenly see an opportunity of making a new beginning in finances, but it does involve changing your peer groups and perhaps your sort of social identity as well. Um, but these new beginnings are prosperous. This full moon, well, let's see before I move in there. Yeah, the new moon in Taurus happens on the 16th. And that is going to bring you, again, like I say, a new way of earning income that feeds you. It's happening at 25 degrees and it makes a beautiful angle to Jupiter in your fourth. So that conflict or that issue that was happening at the beginning of the month with the Jupiter squaring Mars is now resolved. Things flow and finances look good. These new beginnings initiate in the form of making actual tangible finances. Then we're going to have Venus and Mars are going to shift into your fourth house. Venus is going to move into your fourth, and Mars is going to move into your second. Now, Mars is going to make a square to Pluto, again, where you most likely get into some sort of conflict through either social media against conflicts of beliefs, which have been shifting for you. And this conflict on social media or with a tribe group ends and terminates connections. Now watch out, your social media could collapse. Like that could be a something you post, gets you banned or whatever, but really what it looks like is that you are terminating certain connections that no longer align with the new beliefs that you're evolving into. Perhaps if it's religious, you have a lot of family friends and associates that are connected to your ancestral religion. Perhaps they no longer align with your new perspective, and those people go bye-bye. But all in all, this is beautiful transit because there's a beautiful energy from your Mars to your fourth to Venus. Venus in your fourth house makes you very nesty, very nurturing to your children, very family oriented. And so you're evolving into a new sort of family identity or personal identity because of all these transformational transits that are happening at the beginning of the month. So you're no longer really, shall we say, concerned about the external world and what people think about you. And you're very focused on these new beginnings in your finances, big new chapters initiating. And then you have a very warm, happy family experience there for the month. And also abundance can come in because it does make a nice angle to that second house. So there could be some sort of abundant opportunity involving real estate, property, home. And this is a big part of what is causing a financial new beginning for you on that new moon in Taurus. So Let me pull some cards for you here, Aries. Um, Also, with Mars transiting your second house, you're putting a lot of energy into that new beginning of the new beginnings in finances that that new moon initiates for you. And then we're going to have the full moon in Sagittarius in your ninth house, where you come into some sort of revelatory new knowledge about beliefs that are in alignment with your new philosophy or your new. Now, if you've ended an old belief or an old religion that your family was sort of imposed on you, you could say you now are just kind of forming your own religion, your own new philosophies, and it perhaps opens the window and the door up for travel for you as well, because that ninth house is about travel. Or perhaps you want to go start a course, learn astrology, or become an astrologer. That could be the new financial beginnings that are initiating for you. All right, let's pull some cards for Aries here. See what cards come out. Ooh, lovers. If you are single, Aries, you are definitely getting into a stable connection, perhaps marriage, perhaps cohabitating. Also, your finances look very safe. We get this Queen of Pentacles and the Nine of Wands. So we're looking at strong new financial beginnings. That new moon in your second house has you feel financially stable. Then we get the Ten of Wands, which would be a burden. Let's see what cards want to show up for that burden that you have been dealing with for a while, because we get that are no longer. So we get that 10 of Wands, 7 of Wands, that's Aries energy. And then we get the no longer a burden. And you've been dealing with a burden for a long time that looks like this burden lifts for you. And then we get these brand new beginnings of the Fool card, and finding a spirituality or finding peace in a new spiritual path or a new spirituality with that ninth house Sagittarius full moon. All right, Aries, have a wonderful month. Namaste. Hey, Taurus, the month of May begins with this full moon in your seventh house. So this could bring a radical revelation or truths in a connection, in a relationship or a partnership, which has you either terminate the connection or helps you realize that this is your true connection, or it just reveals issues and problems that are causing the connection to go, that are blocking the ability for this connection to go forward. So it either opens you up into being single so that you can align with the right connections and partnerships, or it reveals blockages between you, secrets and unspoken words that need to come out in order for the connection to continue forward and progress. Can be kind of an intense full moon for you. Now, that is at the very beginning of the month. And then we're going to see the next transit is going to be Mercury squaring Pluto on the 3rd. And Mercury is going to move into your first house, squaring Pluto in your 10th. So perhaps you are ending a type of work and you're evolving away from one way of earning income, or your career is changing, and Mercury moving into that energy, into that position there in your first house, has you take initiative to get the guts to walk away from one career and start another one, because you're about to have a new moon in your house where you initiate a new chapter in a way that you are going to financially sustain yourself. Now, with that, it can also be that you just end a fear of doing a certain career decision that you've wanted to make with that new moon. So your fears around taking risks in your career are going away, and you take bold new initiatives to start a career path that you have always been afraid of doing, that you have been afraid that won't feed you. Well, now in this new moon in Taurus, you're going to see that it is a very sustainable path for you. Then we have that Mars squaring Jupiter in the beginning of the month, and that is happening in your 3rd and in your 12th. So that could be conflicts again in beliefs and opinions, and there being some sort of strong verbal conflicts, which could terminate some connections, Or you could also decide to move and relocate, but or you go through some sort of philosophical shift in your beliefs in a big way, and you hear some sort of information that really transforms the way you see things. So this can play out in a variety of ways. Also, if you're running your own business, perhaps you start to end your fears or subconscious blocks to running your own business. But we're going to pull cards on that. So that is perhaps a challenging transit for you that could terminate, changes the people that you hang out with in a day to day. That can also be because of conflicts in beliefs, spiritual beliefs, or family, because Jupiter is family. So there could be family, you could have a religious family background, which you then terminate and you develop your own new religion. Or you, shall we say, find new spiritual beliefs that have you terminate old ones. But Mars in your 12th house is having you be very, shall we say, inter focused and taking action, active action to explore and evaluate your true hidden, what is hidden in you and what you truly, really on an internal level believe, rather than what's being fed to you. So then, so as the month begins, then we're going to have Pluto's going to go retrograde on the 7th in your 10th house, where you do again reevaluate what is truly soulfully aligned for you in your career, what really means something to you, and whether you're following the path that most fulfills your calling, your soul, what fills your cup. And also it is in the sign of Aquarius. You have Aquarius over your 10th, so perhaps you initiate or decide to take on more of a align with a more humanitarian, to upgrade your career so that it somehow solves a humanitarian calling issue. You're going to be part, your career is going to be part of the revolution as it is towards the age of Aquarius. So you start to take something more serious that in this new career that you're probably going to initiate here, that you see a humanitarian importance of it. So you're changing your career and you're evolving in your career so that it aligns with the calling that the universe has right now that fulfills a humanitarian need. Now, let's see. Then we're going to see Mercury squares Pluto. Did I get to that? Yeah, we did talk about that. Then we're going to talk about also Mercury in your first house is going to give you a lot of ideas and you're going to be more communicative than normal, perhaps. Even Mars there in your 12th is making you more introspective, more isolated, probably because of some of these conflicts that are happening. You decide to be more in solitude. But then Mercury comes in and, like I said, squares that. There could be conflicts in your work and with co-people that you work with. Some people could get fired from a job on that transit, but don't worry, there's a new moon in your sign coming in. Let's jump to that on the 16th. That brings you a auspicious new beginning because it is an exalted new moon. So you have a nice auspicious new beginning coming for you that brings you an auspicious new way of making an income that again will most likely involve some of these new changes that are happening in your career as a result of some sort of revelation that happens on that full moon as well, where, or shall we say, that Pluto retrograde makes you want to really align internally with a new way of making money that aligns with you internally. Now, then we're going to have Mars and Venus. Venus, your ruling planet, is going to move into the sign of, shall we say, Cancer. And Mars is going to move into Taurus. So all of this is happening in your first house. Mars is going to enter your first house. So you might want to watch out because Mars is going to make a square to Pluto. And that is going to again bring some more conflicts, perhaps in your work environment where you terminate perhaps a working relationship or a career. Again, this could cause some Taurus is to quit a job or get fired, but it's all for the higher good because you've got that new moon in your first house, which is again an auspicious new beginning, that some of these transits could be a part of why you start some new auspicious beginnings that are much more in alignment with your soul calling. And then with Venus in your third house, you're feeling again, now Venus is going to make a beautiful angle to Mars there in your third house to start pulling some cards, which does bring you an ease in either a new business. I get the nice 10 of Cups. You could relocate because third house transits can cause us to relocate. And so that brings you auspiciousness through that third house, Venus there, your ruling planet, inspiration over a new living situation or inspiration about where you live and how to adapt where you're living because Mars tends to bring action. So you're making some sort of active move to either live in a more inspiring environment or to reinstigate inspiration in your environment or in your local setting because the third house is people who are around us on a day-to-day or the area that we are on a day-to-day. We do get a lover's card, so that could be a very romantic transit for many. There could be shocking, surprising, if you are single, perhaps with that full moon in your seventh house, you ended a connection and now the new one comes in, inspiring, and you're going to cohabitate with this person, settling down with a new relationship. Or if you're in a relationship, you decide to cohabitate. And that makes action in your first house takes a lot of energy to move. Or if you're not moving and you are with your person, you and your person decide to either start a business together, that third house, relocate, um, or you decide to start a media project or selling something because the third house is also commerce. So you perhaps decide to sell something with that third house in Venus. But also this is celebration around love and romance. So that's good energy. Venus in Cancer is very home, very empathic, very nurturing, nesting. We get that true love card coming in for Taurus if you are single. And then we have the full moon, the big bright full moon in the sign of Sagittarius in your eighth house, where again, that could be where you bring your resources together. You join resources. This can sometimes mean a committed new relationship with a person that is right for you. You have a clarity on who that is with that full moon at the beginning of the month. This is the second full moon in the month. So again, this can reveal it can transform your belief. So you have a whole new belief. Perhaps if you're single, you suddenly realize someone you already know really is your person. So you've had a shift in your beliefs and you now align with this person. Or if you're in a relationship, you could find that there are debts involved or some sort of secret is revealed. They could be cheating, but some sort of revelation occurs that has you again potentially either terminate or it's resolved and the relationship goes forward in a more balanced way. Some sort of dispute or out of balanced energy in your relationship is then becomes balanced. So let me pull a few more cards here for Taurus. It could be an interesting month with that Mars square Pluto in your first house. So watch out for, try to not lose your head with that because can be kind of rageful energy. But we're getting clarity with that. Don't forget Uranus is in your second house, so you're getting a lot of shifts and changes, radical shifts and changes around how you make your income. So you could be seeing big clarity on an opportunity coming in that that Mars in your 12th house brings you a lot of clarity around, which then there's that Venus in Cancer, which is in your third house, has you aligning emotionally with a new beginning, with this new opportunity that's coming in, because you're getting clarity, or that hermiting period is having you really see that this is really more emotionally in alignment for you. So some sort of opportunity, that's that new moon, some sort of opportunity brings you into, perhaps you come up with the idea for this opportunity yourself by hermiting with that Mars in your 12th. That puts you much more in alignment, emotional alignment with something that And we do get the Tower card, so you are going to have some radical new changes occurring in your life with that Mars squaring your Pluto in your 10th. And then we do get that Sun card, so you're having breakthroughs from stagnant situations, clarity on an idea that breaks you through a stagnant situation. All right, Taurus, have a wonderful month. Namaste. Hey Gemini, this full moon, the month begins with the full moon in your sixth house, the full moon in Scorpio in your sixth house. Now that can bring up, perhaps reveal some sort of illness, some sort of health issue, but again, it is for your highest good that you know about this so that you can then take care of it and take, shall we say, health measures to mitigate it. Or perhaps there is a tension involved in work, in a situation at work, some sort of tension comes to a climactic culmination, and shall we say, an issue involving work shows up, and it can bring a lot of tension. But again, it is in order to clear the problem or the situation so that it is resolved, so that things can flow better for you. Now, it is a transformative full moon, so this whatever comes up that brings a problem perhaps for you does transform you and clear you. Some sort of lower density fear energy is cleared, and then things are back to a more positive flow. Full moons in Scorpio reveal things that are blocking our progress. So it ultimately brings better, shall we say, makes things better through a transformative experience. Now, the month also begins with Pluto is about to go retrograde, but before that, Mercury on the 3rd will go into the sign of Taurus, into your 12th house, and build a square to Pluto in your, let's see, Pluto in your 9th house. So this is hitting in your houses of the 12th house is possible travel, possible now, this is usually a square brings adversity or endings and this could be a problem in travel plans. It's possible that a travel plan is thwarted and needs to be shall we say, planned or reorganized. Or also, it could involve a shifting of a belief. Some sort of information comes in that shifts a belief because the 9th house is our philosophy, our beliefs. It could be that information comes in and shifts your destiny because it is also the house of Dharma. So perhaps you change your outlook about what you're here to do, and information comes in that puts you on a new path that is more in alignment with your Dharma, your calling. Or it could be that you start this transit brings in some information that tells you or ends a fear of traveling or ends a fear, because Pluto is often can represent our deep hidden fears to travel. So you information comes in that makes you feel confident about traveling. Now, the sun, we are going to have a new moon in your 12th house on the 16th. But before we get to that, but just so you know that that is going to connect with Mercury, with this Mercury square Pluto. So whatever happens with the Mercury square Pluto initiates a big new beginning in your 12th house, which could be a new beginning where you find psychological transformative process, some sort of a healing, or you decide to go on a retreat, or there's some sort of you want to initiate a new healing or health venture or health, shall we say, God, my mind is health initiatives. Thank you. So you're feeling the need to take on maybe that full moon in Scorpio in your in your sixth house initiates the need to take yourself on a health retreat of some sort, or to sort of find a way to de-stress yourself and to take some kind of new beginning in a way that psychologically soothes you, that brings you inner healing, inner peace. And that Mercury squaring Pluto might be the instigator that also helps you see that you want to take a transformative approach and transform some deeper subconscious psychological stresses that you're carrying in your psyche. Now, Pluto goes retrograde in your ninth house on the 7th here, which again continues this theme where you want to explore some. Now that full moon in Scorpio squares Mars, which we are going to look at as well. And that could transform. Let me go back to that. Mars is going to be squaring Pluto in your 11th house. And sorry, Mars is going to square Jupiter in your second and in your 11th house. It's possible that you find out some sort of information that again radically changes your beliefs about money and about your health, because the second house can also be health, and Mars is often about our health. It could also be that you change some friends. You could have conflict in beliefs with people that are in a tribe, or tribe groups or friend groups. It could also be that you change your philosophical beliefs from about society, and that you become more, shall we say, motivated to step forward into a humanitarian calling. But this Mars squaring Jupiter will shift your beliefs, and perhaps may shift your beliefs in a way that has you change who you align with. But this shift in belief is all connected to that full moon in Scorpio, where you are going to probably slow yourself down a little bit, and because your ruling planet is going to be in the 12th house in Taurus. So it is a good chance that this is a stressful transit at the beginning of the month that motivates you when Mercury goes into your 12th to take some downtime and to sort of heal your nervous system and calm your nervous system down. Uranus is in Gemini, which rules you. So there is a chance that that is causing ADD energy for you. That's going to be for 7 years, Uranus in your first house, where you're going to be radically changing a lot of what you think because of radical new information coming in. That's very shocking, and it is going to alter your identity. Your identity will change. Who you are by the end of this transit will be completely different because of knowledge and information that you learn and hear. Now, so yeah, and that Pluto in retrograde, which happens on the 7th, is going to start you on a long-term inner exploration of what you truly believe. There is a chance, because Mars is going to square that Pluto in your first house. Mars is going to square that later on the month. And then when Mercury squares that Pluto in your ninth, there is a chance you really are changing a lot of the way you see religion and spirituality. And there is a good chance you initiate a new journey with this Pluto in retrograde, where you're going within and experiencing a transformation in what you believe, and sort of awakening to higher consciousness philosophies, and sort of believing in something from an internal, something that aligns with you on the inside, rather than just being told what to believe. You're going to be transforming on the inside around beliefs and something that really aligns with your soul, that you feel is really true. So that moves us into that new moon, like I say, in your 12th house, which again could also instigate some travel. But again, this is travel to calm your nerves and as a vacation or a way to de-stress and heal from whatever's going on with Mercury squaring Pluto, and then eventually Mars squaring Pluto. Mars is going to enter your, let's get back to that. Mars is going to enter your 12th house on the why is it going backwards? Oh yeah. Mars is going to enter your 12th house on the 19th, and that is going to put you again in an energy of ending an old belief system. Perhaps there's conflict around beliefs and higher philosophies, but with Mars in your 12th house, it's more likely you're in a introverted energy and finding self connection with your center self, and then realizing that perhaps some of your beliefs that you've been told to have are not really in alignment with who you really are. So this is transforming your beliefs. There again, this could end a travel plan or initiate a travel plan depending on how it's playing out for you. If it's ending a travel plan, it could be because somewhere in the world, this Mars squaring Pluto is causing problems in the world. But hopefully, I'm praying that this is to end the conflict. But it could also be that you initiate a travel plan, because squares can also be ending not traveling. So, however it plays out for you, this is going to be a very transformative experience, these transits squaring Mars in your Pluto in your ninth, where it is in retrograde, where you are starting to form an inner, more integral philosophy that aligns with which resonates with your soul. And then did I say Mercury is going to move into your first house in your sign, where that is going to be very positive for you. It's in its own sign, your own sign. It's your ruling planet. So a lot of flow could happen for you. Movement in communication, media, writing, projects go forward. Perhaps you do go into a hermit mode when Mars goes into that 12th house, and you go right, and you take time to focus on some sort of a project, media project, communication venture that you are wanting to initiate. For some Gemini, it could be that you travel and sell things. Gemini is the energy of commerce and selling. Now, Mercury is in Gemini, then is going to make actually a trine to Pluto too, when Mercury goes into Gemini, which actually is very positive. So perhaps you also, Pluto in retrograde in your ninth house, you could also be studying and learning philosophy, or starting to learn higher knowledge to expand upon knowledge that you already have. But when Mercury trines that Pluto, there is a real ease of whatever tension happened with the Mars and the Mercury square Pluto now eases up. There's flow. If there was conflict, it is solved, resolved. So things flow very nicely for you around May 19th, when that Mercury enters your house. And then Venus and Mars, like I say, Mars, we've already talked about squaring Pluto, but Mars will make a nice angle to Venus in your second house, where you will be feeling perhaps a pretty abundant, and Jupiter's in your second house anyway. So you're advancing and expanding in how you earn your income and how you feed yourself. And perhaps now with Mars making a nice trine to that second house, there is nice flow in income and a expansion of your resources. So this is nice. Also, you could also be seeing your value, becoming more aware of your full value with Venus there, and nurturing yourself and eating good food, lots of good, yummy food. This could be a period where you, if you're not careful, you could gain weight, but you could also really enjoy good cooking. Perhaps you are motivated to be at home and cook. Cancer is the energy of home, nurturing your home, and also nurturing your body, taking care of your body. Perhaps you are on a retreat and eating very, very healthy, like a yoga retreat, and eating very, very good fresh foods. So That new moon, we've already talked about that new moon. So all in all, the month for Gemini looks pretty transformational. Those squares to Pluto could bring stress and potential, I would say, disruptions with travel or needing to travel because of a crisis of some sort. So we always want to prepare for prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, as they say. So it could play out completely fine. You may not even notice it because you may not have any planets in your 12th house and you don't, and no planets in your ninth house, and you don't notice this transit. But I'm always just like to have people be aware of those transits. Um, so all in all, the month looks really favorable for Gemini, especially with your ruling planet coming into the sign of Uranus. By the way, there could be a sudden shock and change of knowledge and information that is liberating for you. That would be a positive transit. So all in all, the month looks fabulous for you, Gemini. Let me pull some cards here for Gemini. Let's see what cards come out here for Gemini. For Gemini, Gemini, Gemini. Let's see. The Nine of Wands comes out. So the Nine of Wands, the Five of Cups is kind of like a sad card, but that changes. So whatever has been emotionally, I'm getting a lot of emotional cards for these readings, which obviously means it's the full moon, Scorpio. If it does cause any kind of a emotionally upsetting experience, things get worked through. It is okay. It is you're safe. It's just maybe an emotional experience and you become more emotionally in alignment. Perhaps something in that sixth house is upsetting, but everything is safer than it perhaps feels because the sixth house can be stressful. So whatever stress occurs, you are then emotionally aligned and you are safe. And let's see what other cards come out for that. We get the King of Cups. We're getting a lot of water cards in these readings. We do have Jupiter in a water sign. And Jupiter is trining that sixth house. So it's bringing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It brings healing, basically. And there is that harmony at home harmony. I love Venus in Cancer's harmony in the home. So right through whatever happens in that full moon and the Pluto squaring, if there is an emotionally turbulent experience here, everything works out pretty well. There is the Hermit card representing your 12th house, and that brings you in connection to inspired action, sort of some sort of downtime has you connecting with what inspires you and what perhaps you're going to initiate with that Mercury in your first house. You get very connected to something that really inspires you, perhaps a writing project that you then initiate. All right, Gemini, have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Cancer. This month begins with the full moon in Scorpio in your fifth house, which could bring a variety of culminations or situations. It could turn a friendship that was just a friendship. A truth could be revealed that it is more than a friendship and that there are feelings and it turns into a romance. It could be that a connection that you thought was going to be romantic turns out to not be what you thought it would be and it terminates. Friendships, could you discover some really good friends during this full moon, people that you just know casually, turn into more long-term, closer friendships. It could reveal a pregnancy. It could also be this is the house of something where out of nothing, now there is something kind of like a baby or an entrepreneurial venture comes into its full fruition and brings success. What else can it be? It is a transformative full moon and it is emotional. So there is a climactic element to it also. There could be some sort of perhaps arguments involved with friends because we do have Jupiter squaring Mars at the same time, which can bring conflicts from people more likely in your work houses. But this full moon could bring an intensity in a relationship. in the form of a conflict. So just that is another possibility. So let's get on to the Mars squaring Jupiter. Jupiter's in your first house, so you are in your confidence. You are bold and feeling brave about life in general and believing in yourself. And perhaps there are conflicts brewing in your work environment between people, an authority figure in your work. There could be a clash of beliefs. Perhaps they are trying to assert dominance over you in some way, and it sort of brings a conflict of some sort. Or perhaps for some Cancer, they just decide to quit a job because perhaps you're not happy there, and there is too many clashings of belief, because Jupiter squaring Mars is Jupiter is going to be around your belief system. So perhaps there is a clash between people in your work environment over beliefs. Now, what else? Pluto is going to go retrograde. This is a month of transformations because of this Pluto going into retrograde and that full moon in Scorpio. Perhaps there is a friendship that brings you information or knowledge that completely changes and shifts your beliefs around something. Maybe they have a very strong opposing belief that then you evolve into a new belief because of them. But there are shifts in beliefs happening in these transits with Mars squaring Jupiter, and then Pluto is going retrograde, where you will have a, shall we say, an inner transformation as a result of something happening at the beginning of the month. Now, Pluto is going to be retrograde until November. So until November, there's going to be some sort of internal transformation. And Pluto is going to be in your 8th house. So the internal transformation is most likely happening for Cancers in a way that has you face some sort of deep-rooted fears around finances and money, and you discover that you have a deep-rooted issue from perhaps a past life or younger in life that has caused you to have a fear of survival. And through Pluto in retrograde, which is the house of intimacy, joint resources, money that we don't earn outside sources of income, that in general, you are learning to trust the universe and trust that you will always be taken care of. And so this Pluto in retrograde is going to create a deep reflective experience where you purge out these sources of fear of survival, basically. And it could be connected to knowledge and information that's coming in through that. Perhaps some Cancers want to quit their job and seek a more soul-aligned way of making money, but they're too afraid. And so they're holding on to situations that are not feeding your soul. So perhaps during this period, you do find that you change your career, because most Cancers are coming through career changes with Saturn in your 10th house, that you take a bold risk to sort of bravely go forward in a career that is more in alignment with your soul. So then we have Mercury is going to move into Taurus before that Pluto goes retrograde, and it will make a square to Pluto, which could again bring some triggering information that triggers some fears about your survival. Financial complications could show up. If you are married, perhaps you discover there's a debt that he didn't, or your spouse didn't reveal to you and is now revealed. That could also be connected to the full moon in Scorpio. But whatever happens, it will ease up. There will be, shall we say, a relief involved, because this is just purging. The bells are ringing. This is purging deeper. Whatever triggers you is in order to sort of come up to the surface and then be healed, as it were, and transformed. This is a month of transformation for sure. And that Mercury also could involve a conflict with a tribes group, conflict on social media, that triggers you, or information that ends a fear. Now, it could be we have a new moon coming in Taurus, which will bring abundance. So it could be information that ends a debt, a financial opportunity through a word of mouth client gaining new social media recognition that brings you a client that then is very abundant on this new moon, initiating a new financial beginning for you through your connections that then terminates a debt or a fear about finances because you start to feel very stable about your income. So it depends on your personal chart, but it is really whatever this triggering happens, if it is a more negative experience, it is to transform your fears and for you to discover that you always land on your feet and you will be okay, and that the universe has got your back, and that you can start trusting in the universe. So then we go to the next thing is that full moon, that new moon in your 11th house, very auspicious new moon in its exaltation in your 11th house of lucky gains, public notoriety. So there could be success on your social media, new clients coming in, meeting new people that bring you financial abundance. And it is also potentially a romantic transit for those who are single. You could meet someone online, and this could turn into a nice relationship because it's an exalted new moon. So then that brings us to Venus and Mars moving into, Venus is going to move into the sign, into your first house on the, let's get to it, on the 19th is that, while Mars also moves into your 11th house. Now, let's get to that. So there is Mars on the 19th, transits into the sign of Taurus, and Venus into the sign of your first house, which is going to give you extra good looks and feeling good about yourself. And again, with Jupiter there, you're believing in yourself. So you're feeling pretty good. And also it can bring romance if you are single. And also it can bring a nice phase in your relationship if you are in a relationship. You're feeling loved and appreciated. Let's put it that way. Now it's making a nice angle to Mars, who is building now a square to Pluto, which again is going to potentially trigger you or bring some sort of conflict, potentially with people that you know in a tribe groups. Perhaps you terminate some friends or connections that are not in alignment with your beliefs and where you want to see yourself heading. And although there is that nice angle to Venus, I would say that you do sort of win. You've got Jupiter on your side, but you are facing and ending fears again around, this could also be a triggering transit where you find out some sort of financial tension, perhaps tax issues show up, or you get a tax return that ends a debt. Because again, these squares can end debts. I have seen squares to my 8th house end a debt. And, or perhaps there is some conflicts and triggering again with people that you know, and you terminate some group of friends that are not in alignment again with your future and and your dreams. So those are challenging transits, the Mercury square Pluto and the Mars square Pluto, but Cancers are pretty, and plus don't forget we've got that the Jupiter squaring your Mars in your 10th. But on the whole, Cancers are pretty fluid people and roll with it and tend to smooth out conflicts. So on the whole, I don't see this as being too tough for Cancers. And when Mercury, also I forgot to mention, Mercury is going to move into your 12th house, into the sign of Gemini, which is awesome for traveling or for going into a period of introspective and writing. Or what else could that be? You decide to take some time off and read a book. But this is a very powerful energy. You're going to be feeling very articulate and able to communicate well. And also, this is the energy of selling. Mercury in Gemini is a salesperson. So perhaps you you start selling something. With that Venus trining Mars, sextiling Mars, there could be some opportunities showing up through social media that enable you to sell things. And then let's go ahead and pull some cards for Cancer. And also we're going to have a full moon in your 6th house, which will be in Also, just to mention that as Mars transits your 11th house, this will be a very active social period. I know it's weird because you've got Mercury in your 12th, which is more introspective, but there is also potential for a lot of socializing with Mars there because you're feeling very invigorated and bold and taking initiatives there in your 11th house, which is about social media, humanitarian causes, socializing, meeting new people, meeting new tribe people. So let's go ahead and pull some cards for Cancer. New tribe people, meeting new people that eventually become your tribe, a tribe that are aligning you with the right people for your career and your success and to have your dreams come true. And because the 11th house is a dream, is the house of dreams. And also some cancers are writers that could also indicate you get published or you get recognition for your work, because your career is upgrading for sure. Now, then Venus in your first house is having you be very, very maternal and feeling very, shall we say, nurturing. And there is good, solid financial progress happening. We get that Nine of Pentacles involving stable financial progress through that 11th house, Mars in Taurus, and also the beginning of the month. Sun is in your 11th house, again bringing you new connections, new word of mouth, abundance through word of mouth, and people referring you. We get the Hierophant card. So if you are single, Cancers, there's a good chance you become committed in a connection with that beautiful new moon in Taurus could bring you a commitment in a relationship. Also, that full moon in Scorpio can do that as well. A stuck situation becomes liberated. You have Uranus in your 12th house, so you could suddenly find yourself traveling or getting downloads or dreams with powerful new ideas. And you become very psychic with that Uranus in your 12th house. You're very connected. Now, this is the inspiring energy. I would think that that is the full moon in Sagittarius at the end of the month, in igniting you and inspiring you about your work, because that's a 6th house, jumping all the way in for a brand new beginning here in a variety of different things. It could most likely be career with Jupiter there in your first house, giving you confidence to initiate bold new beginnings. What else do we see? And perhaps ending again certain situations and alliances that are not supportive of your new destiny. I just want to talk a little bit more about that full moon in Sagittarius. That full moon in Sagittarius is going to bring you work, inspiration, new beginnings. It can reveal some health issues, but again, that would be in order for you to take measures to eliminate them or to clear it and fix it. It'll also bring you opportunities around work. It also can reveal the kind of work that you truly do want to align with. And it could also involve traveling and work. So that is an auspicious full moon in the sign of Sagittarius, which I will go more into in more depth in other posts. All right, Cancer, have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Leo, the month begins with that full moon in your 4th house, which brings revelations in your, shall we say, family. Perhaps there's drama in your family that needs sort of, there maybe your children are acting up and there's big emotional outbursts, and there are some truths revealed that need to be discussed, hashed out, looked at, that have been repressed, hidden. It's sort of a culmination of some sort of stress that's been building in your family. I know that sounds hard, but actually it would bring a, shall we say, conclusion, and then it clears it, and then we are now free of this building tension. So that's nice, although it may not feel so at the time, but eventually it does clear up this, shall we say, hidden issue. Or it brings revelations to you if you are not in a family of where you want to live. It could also bring in a relationship that is ready to commit and live together. It could bring cohabitation. What else? It could also reveal that you want to move, that you've got too many problems in your property that you don't like, and it's time to move. So some sort of truth and revelation is revealed that wants to transform your living situation into a more soul-aligned ease and peace. It sort of cleans out tension and struggle, or it has you move. If your environment is toxic, it could reveal that there's toxic in your environment and you need to leave or move. So that's the beginning of the month. And then we get to the big transit of Mercury shifting into Taurus on the 3rd, and it builds a square to Pluto in your 7th. So the Mercury shifting into your 10th house brings perhaps conflicts with work relationships, verbal disputes, perhaps getting triggered from a partnership if you're in a business partnership, and it could terminate a relationship, a working relationship. It's also in your 7th house, so there could be an argument with a spouse over your career and that you need to quit that career because it's impacting your relationship in a negative way, perhaps. Or you decide to end a relationship. That's also possible. Knowledge or information can come in, a truth can come in. Also, that full moon in Scorpio can bring a relationship truth that makes it necessary that you terminate the relationship. Or the other way around, it could be that you meet somebody in a business environment, communication, and you initiate a relationship. It changes your status from single to connect in a relationship. And again, this can play out in a variety of ways. Um, It doesn't have to necessarily be negative. It can be positive. It can be just a conflict in your relationship and it's a solid relationship and you break through some issues. Again, it could be connected to that full moon. And then we are going to have that Mars is squaring Jupiter, and Jupiter is in your 12th house and Mars is in your 9th house. So there is potential here for conflicts in belief. Perhaps you decide to initiate some travel as well, conflicts in beliefs, or you just have your own personal awakening, some sort of revelation, some sort of deep seated sort of psychological issue. You break through it and it stops you blocking. And you may have been very rigid about your beliefs, and some sort of deep psychological sort of source of why you're afraid to believe or open your mind to a belief ends, and you suddenly open your mind to new beliefs. If you have travel plans, it's possible they change and you have to end them because of some sort of potential itch situation showing up that randomly makes you have to change your plans. But mostly this looks like a big shift in your beliefs, and then you initiate a new journey in beliefs. You open your mind up. That's what's happening to a lot of people in this month. It's a very transformative month. So perhaps you discover new beliefs in this transit and you open your mind to these new beliefs. New information or knowledge comes in. It could trigger you and disturb you because you don't want to believe this, but you then eventually see that it's the truth and you sort of shift your perception. And then when Pluto is going to go retrograde in your 7th house, where you are really evaluating your relationships, whether they're soul aligned or not for you, where you're processing some of these shifts and changes that are happening to you in Jupiter in your 12th, these deep shifts in beliefs and spirituality, perhaps has you reevaluate the relationships you're in or partnerships you're in, and you perhaps could end them again or not, or you just, shall we say, reevaluate whether you are honest in your relationship, your connections, and you sort of, because your beliefs are shifting so radically in this transit with your 9th and your 12th, that you become a different person in the relationship. And so you both have to evaluate whether it still is the right relationship. If it is, it'll stay. You'll both align in these new beliefs. They might be going through new beliefs as well. But you're going to experience an internal shift inside about relationships, which when Pluto goes direct on the 11th, will then have you change who you are in relationships. Perhaps you are attached and fear-based in a connection where you're too attached. And when Pluto goes direct, you're no longer afraid of losing the relationship. You become more your authentic self and allow the relationship to fall or stay in its, rather than you trying to do that. Depends on what planets you have in your 7th. Now we're going to have Mercury move. Oh, we already talked about Mercury. Then we're going to have this new moon in your 10th house of a very auspicious new beginning for your career. And that Mercury transiting in your 10th house can bring, you could find yourself in a promotion situation. Because Mercury is trining the nodes, you could very well be very sort of bringing knowledge and information in your work environment that has people impressed by you. So you get sort of a career upgrade or a promotion, or with that with a couple of squares coming in that Mercury square, you perhaps quit your job and you then venture out and you initiate a new job, new moon in your 10th house, very auspicious, exalted new moon, a better career, a better place to work, a whole new job, even a new career, perhaps because of your new beliefs, your mind waking up. Perhaps you have these new ideas to initiate a new direction in your career. But it is very auspicious and abundant, this new direction that you initiate. Now we're also going to have Mercury, I'm sorry, Mercury is then going to move into the sign of Gemini, which is your 11th house, where you could meet, let's get to that spot, where you could find yourself meeting, and it's going to join Uranus, suddenly meeting new people or suddenly surprising sort of. Now, Mercury is going to make a square to Pluto. Oh, no, actually, sorry, it doesn't make a square to Pluto. It trines Pluto. So that could be suddenly meeting your true person. Love at first sight. That's a transit for that. Or you meet people, if you're online and you're dating online, you could have very good success meeting somebody online. If you're in a relationship, you could have a beautiful opportunity show up here for selling, marketing, or meeting somebody, or word of mouth. You get praise, you get recognition that suddenly gives you a upgrade in your career because the 11th house supports the 10th. And so you could suddenly find yourself in a dream come true potential situation because Mercury is very happy in the sign of Gemini. So also, if you have a presence on social media, it could suddenly glow up. It could be a nice, big, positive glow up for you there. But that is a nice transit for you. The 11th house is fabulous for recognition, gains, wins, notoriety, success. If you're a writer, you could get published. But this is a boost in your popularity in general. Or you could meet, like I say, a bunch of new friends and connections, which then bring you new clients. So then we're going to have this big transit of Mars shifting into the sign of Taurus in your 10th house, making a sextile to Venus in your 12th. Venus in your 12th in Cancer is going to make you very nurturing, very empathic, very intuitive, perhaps a little shy and introvert, taking some time to sort of take care of yourself, perhaps take a little trip, again, a retreat type energy where you're taking care of your health, vacation. But it does make a sextile to Mars in your career. So perhaps something happens in your career here that gives you a boost of finances, and plus that new moon there in your 10th house gives you perhaps the chance to travel and take a vacation, or just to spend some time on your own and sort of heal your or calm your nerves down and take some time off there. But Mars also will bring a stressful transit to Pluto in your 7th house. Again, if you are in a rocky relationship, this could end that or cause a big, shall we say, crisis in action with a relationship. Or again, it could be if you aren't in the right career at this point, this does terminate. You do decide to quit that career, or you have conflict with people in your work, because often Mars transit the 10th house can bring conflicts in a work situation, and you sort of are feeling bold. Now, with that Pluto in retrograde, this is part of the changes that are happening within you, and so it's possible that this brings a conflict, and you're pretty triggered, and this could be a bumpy transit for some, or it could be you end your fears of trying to control the relationship because Aquarius is a Saturn energy, so it tends to have a controlling vibration energy of your relationship. So you suddenly become confident in your career and you're not afraid to hold on to a relationship, or you feel like it's okay to let it go and let it stay or not. But you're going through a lot of transformations about your one-on-one contracted relationships. Again, this could be a client termination, work client termination, which is going to be, again, this is a transformation happening where you're becoming more in your power. So whatever terminates is just not really good for you anyway. And so that leads us, we talked about the new moon. So now let's go ahead and pull some cards for Leo. Plus, you've got that Sagittarius full moon that's going to be in where's your Sagittarius? In your fifth house, right? So that's fantastic to have a full moon in your fifth house. For some Leos, it could be that you discover you're pregnant, but a full moon in your fifth house in Sagittarius is very creative and inspired new beginning. Well, actually, it's not a new beginning. This is the culminations of a new moon. You may have initiated something. Perhaps you initiated a new relationship with a new moon there, which now turns into a committed relationship. If it was a friendship, it now becomes serious. Or, like I say, you find you're pregnant. Or if you're already in a relationship, committed relationship, this could be very inspiring, good news about your children. It could also be, shall we say, an inspiring full, if you've made attempts to start creative projects, this creative project is now in full bloom and looks successful and like it will bring you auspicious abundance. The fifth house can be very abundant house. It's where we create something out of nothing. So let's pull cards here for Leo. So we get the Seven of Pentacles. This would be progress. Now, for some there, we do get that children card. For some, there's children. So we get some sort of emotional balance and some sort of results from hard work. That now this is actually kind of a romantic. So for some who are single, this could be a very positive romantic transit where somebody comes forward and you have romantic beginnings, or a relationship turns into a friendship turns into a romance. The truths are revealed that there was more feelings there than what was initially what it seemed. So then let's see what else comes out for Leo in the fifth house full moon, or in general for Leo. There is also potential for travel, like I say, with that Venus in your 12th house, that you decide to travel. Now we get this victory card. So all in all, for Leo, there is victory here over your struggles. So whatever those tensions bring with those squares to Pluto, you transform into your power. And you basically tell people that are, giving you problems to bug off, basically. You hold your ground. Then we get that Four of Wands, which is home, happy, harmony, home harmonics. That Venus in Cancer brings home harmony, domestic harmony. For those that are, even if you're not in a relationship, you can have a nice domestic harmony in a single way, if that's the case. So something, you're figuring with that Venus in the 12th, you're really figuring something out. You're getting some clear downloads with Jupiter there about what you're just getting guidance. You're spending quality time alone and getting some good downloads and some good guidance. And don't forget, with Uranus there in your 11th house, anything can happen at any minute where you meet sudden new people, which then turn into good financial businesses. I had Uranus in my 11th house, and I met a lot of people who really, shall we say, brought a lot of advancements for my career. It was a lot of word of mouth that gave me the ability to do this. So we've got that Two of Pentacles where you're really figuring something out in that hermit energy. And there's that spiritual card. So you're really connecting to your spiritual center to get guidance so that you align with the relationships that are truly in alignment with your soul, the tribe that's truly in alignment with your soul or your beliefs. And you're waking up to new spiritual beliefs. You're having a major transformation in your beliefs. All right, Leo, have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Virgo, this month of May begins with a transformative full moon in your third house while Mars is squaring Jupiter in your 11th and in your 8th, where you will be feeling very powerful information. News comes in that truths, revelations, or conflicts sort of bubble to the top from people that are around you in your neighborhood or people around you on a day-to-day basis. There could be some sort of reveal or truths come up that could cause conflicts, or you could see that something in your environment day to day is toxic and you want to move, or you sort of realize in your own sort of center self that you want to move or change your day to day environment. Um, Siblings, something you could hear some truths or knowledge about a sibling. Now we have this Mars squaring Jupiter in your 11th. So there could be conflict with people in your tribes, in your people that you know, in your tribe, where, conflicts in beliefs that, and again, you've got Mars in your 8th house, which can again be triggering. This sounds pretty hard, but don't worry, it gets better. Where you discover that there is you may not want to disagree with people because you want to sort of keep the status quo going, but perhaps disagreements show up and you overcome a fear of being a people pleaser and communicating truths and beliefs to people and surprise them, but you're feeling bold because Mars in your 8th house, you're overcoming that fear of speaking truths. Let's put it that way. That's the other thing about a full moon in your third house. You could communicate truths that you've been holding back, like something you've been not telling people now sort of bursts out in the full moon. It's in a culmination. It's emotional. It could be intense, but this is going to transform you and create more flow in your life. And perhaps, and some connections that are not in alignment with your beliefs with Jupiter over the 11th, if people aren't in the right direction that you are seeing yourself go, or the types of people that are supportive of, shall we say, your dharma, your path, and how you're basically transforming the kinds of connections that you're associating with, because you're no longer willing to hold back your truths that are keeping certain connections there that are not necessarily in alignment with your soul. So that's the beginning of the month. And then the Mercury is going to move into Gemini, into your 10th house. And it is very auspicious. Oh, sorry. I take that back. Mercury is going to move into Taurus, into your 9th house, where it will continue to make a square to Pluto in your 6th. Now, it's possible there is a health issue show up. And if that's the case, it will be in order for you to mitigate the problem and transform it into a healthy situation and take some sort of measure to fix the health problem. But also Mercury and Taurus squaring Pluto again is a clash of beliefs, perhaps with work associates. Um, Information can come in that 9th house that triggers you, perhaps stresses you out, but it smooths out because it's not for long. And then with Mercury over your 9th house, you're learning and discovering new beliefs, new philosophies, or you're becoming clearer on your dharma there. And then we are going to be looking at a new moon there, which I'm going to go to in a minute. But first, we're going to look at, uh, let's see, Mercury is going to move into Gemini. Let's just go ahead and put Mercury into Gemini. Your ruling planet moves into the 10th house in its own sign. Very good for your work. It will make a trine to Pluto, which will then ease up any sort of tension or stresses that occurred over there with that Mercury squaring Pluto. You may not even feel it. Some of these squares we don't feel unless we have planets there. So, but Mercury in your 10th house brings very abundant upgrade in your career, in your in any project that it could initiate a new project in your career. It could give you notoriety, recognition. You've got Uranus there where you suddenly might change your career. But this is very positive for your career, where you have an ease of communication, ease of selling if you're selling in commerce. Um, what else? Media projects. If you have media projects, they're going to go very well. And this is a period where you could very likely find yourself being promoted or initiating a new career that is more in alignment with your dharma, with that new moon coming into your ninth house, which is going to be on the 16th. Whoops, we did pass that. So on the 16th, let's go back. You're going to have that new moon in your ninth house, which will align you with a path and a new beginning that is very abundant because this is a new moon in its exaltation that aligns you with a more dharmic calling or your true path. Now, it could also, if that's not what it is for you, it could be that you travel, you discover a new place you want to travel, or you work and travel and you have an opportunity come in through travel that earns you good money. Perhaps you are going to be selling things and you go abroad to sell them. With that Mercury going into your first house. Now, Mercury is going to go into your first house, is going to trine Pluto, so it'll ease whatever tensions that square to Pluto at the beginning of the month would have brought, and you are no longer, shall we say, triggered by whatever that may have triggered, if it happens for you. Now, Pluto is going to go retrograde. I forgot to mention that. Pluto is going retrograde in your sixth house, which is going to have you take some deep inner transformations around things that cause you stress, health issues. The reason perhaps that you are, let's just use, for instance, autoimmune disorder could show up and there is an eating habit that needs to change and you're reevaluating, going through internal changes over some sort of eating addiction or perhaps a bad habit and the source of that bad habit. You're making a true soul connection and you're healing that. And you're going inward to really evaluate what it is in you deep down that is causing you to make decisions for your health that are not good for you. Because you're going through a health transformation with that Pluto in your sixth house. Wow, the Wheel of Fortune shows up. That's your ninth house new moon. That is your destiny turning. The ninth house is a very destined house. It really helps align you with your destiny. Something that you've been waiting for. We get the Seven of Wands. Again, also that earth energy can be that it takes a while to really bring you big results, or shall we say the full results, but you have been looking for your dharma for a while and you have felt very confused. So this new moon in your 10th house has you let go of that, and now you become on the path towards some sort of victorious, in aligned destiny journey. So there's your new moon. Then we talked about Mercury transiting your 10th house, bringing you a lot of abundance and good opportunities and success in your work there, because Mercury's in its own sign and it is your ruling planet. So that's very good for Virgos. And then we're going to have Mars is going to move into your fifth. Wait, Mars is then going to move into Taurus on the 19th, as well as Venus moves into Cancer in your on the 20th or 19th, making a beautiful angle. Perhaps if you are single, you could meet someone online. A romantic connection can show up here. Or you make new alliances through travel. If you're traveling, you may meet new alliances that are very auspicious. Perhaps a romantic connection shows up here if you're single. Your public image is looking good. You're looking good on social media. You're feeling popular with Venus there in Cancer. You have a good, shall we say, energy around you, and people are attracted to you with that Venus in Cancer. It's a nurturing, empathic energy. Then you've got this nice angle to Mars, which is going to build a square to Pluto, but it makes a nice angle to Venus. So there could be some nice this could bring you connections in that support your career and your work. If you're a writer, by the way, you could get published with that transit, but like this would bring nice connections or nice abundance through, if you're on your dharmic path, taking initiatives to step into your dharmic path, you're aligning with people who will support you, and you get word of mouth support or social support, or you start to meet new tribe. You've got Jupiter there, so your tribe group is expanding, and you're getting good word of mouth that supports a career, supports your new dharmic path. Again, with that Mercury in your 10th house, that's really positive because you could get career boost through people that you're meeting in with Jupiter there and with Venus there. So this is very positive and good word of mouth coming in, that, or shall we say, references and meeting people that are supporting these new beginnings that are happening in your ninth house, and the upgrade in your work that's happening in your 10th house. All right, so this full moon in Sagittarius is going to be in your fourth house, which brings you clarity on, oh, there's that gem. This is a Jupiter card. This full moon is ruled by Jupiter, and this changes your destiny in your living situation or family. You may initiate a family, move, relocate to a new country, or you just decide to expand your property and add to your house. Stay where you are and add a room, an addition. Jupiter's about expansion. So your living situation is going to expand in some way. You could expand your family, have a child on this transit. Um, but your destiny is going to tilt in this transit. Also, you become clear on what you want to let go of. And if you're living somewhere, you want to let go of where you're living, or what we get this victory card. So sort of the Sagittarius full moon is very inspiring. So you become very inspired to perhaps be creative about your living situation and make it more beautiful, redesign it, redecorate it. And you get all these ideas about how to improve your living situation. So now we get the Page of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles. That's all that Mercury in your 10th house, causing you a lot of auspicious advancements in your career and work environment. All right, have a wonderful month, Virgo. Namaste. All right, Libra, this full moon is hitting in your second house, which brings some sort of a culmination or a perhaps crisis or tension around your finances and income, and reveals that you either want to transform how you make your income, how you earn your money, and you decide that you want to change your ways of working and how you feed yourself. But it could also be that you go through a revelation that you have some sort of low self-worth around your income or low belief around your money, and that's going to transform, and you now realize that you have to sort of change that about yourself and see your value, because this is a full moon of complete and utter transformation. So your finances and how you earn your income are going to transform in this full moon to more abundance. Now, so it maybe, if you don't change your career and how you earn your money, you change your belief about yourself, and you change your, shall we say, energy about yourself. I've seen full moons in the second house show me that I had low self-worth, and it can be triggering and upsetting, but you then discover that you are holding low self-worth and you deserve to either earn more money or get a better job or to be treated better. Something like that. But this is eventually raising you to a higher level in your income. Then we have, let's see, then we're going to have Mercury move into the sign of Taurus on the 3rd. Let's see, where is Mercury there? Are we on the beginning? Yeah. So Mercury's in Aries begins, and then it moves into Taurus, your 8th house, which again is a Scorpio house. It is a house of transformation, and it will square Pluto in your 5th. So it is possible that you have a shift in your finances, or how you say you could sometimes squares to your fifth. I've had a transit in my fifth house square my eighth, and it ended a debt. So perhaps that full moon in Scorpio reveals a debt that, or a high level of interest rate that you don't like. And so you end that credit card and you move your money around, or you have a tax situation show up, but this is a stressful transit. Of course, you may not even feel it. It depends on your chart. But if you do feel it, you terminate some kind of spending situation. There's like a leakage in your spending. You terminate it, you change it. Um, Again, it could bring a conflict you are having Pluto in your transiting your third house, and it is about to go retrograde, where you sort of transform your potentially sort of people-pleasing tendencies in friendships, or your friendships are going to transform into more soul-aligned connections, especially when Pluto goes retrograde in a few days after this, where you're processing a lot of the revelations at that full moon. Perhaps you're making friends with people that aren't really valuing you enough, or those that aren't valuing enough, you terminate. So this can be stressful. You may not even feel it, but um, that will pass. Mercury is a fast ruling moving planet, so that moves on after the first week. Then we're going to have Pluto go retrograde, where you're really sort of internalizing some of the shifts in beliefs that are occurring during the beginning of the month around your value, how you value yourself, but also Mars is making a square to Jupiter in your seventh and in your 10th, which could bring conflict in relationships and work, or a shift in beliefs or conflict in beliefs. Um, Jupiter is in your 10th house, bringing you expansion around your work, and having you initiate, sort of feeling bold to take on new initiatives in your work and your career. And Mars in your seventh is perhaps in Aries, is perhaps having you argue in your connections, in your relationships, over beliefs. And it could, if you're in the wrong relationship, terminate the connection. Or you could be changing your beliefs to align more with a truth that actually brings more harmony to your relationships. So there are a variety of ways that can play out, but this is a transformative month where your beliefs are transforming. The beliefs of your partner are, if you're in a relationship, are also going through major transformations. So um, the relationships are transforming through these transits, to good or worse. If you're in the right connection, it will be better. It's transforming for the good. And this can be career clients too, because seventh house can be clients. So there might be a termination of some client relationships if they just aren't positive, and, you know, opens you up to more in aligned, um, shall we say, connections. And then, so Pluto going retrograde, we talked about in your fifth house, where you're reevaluating friendships and relationships that are false, not true, not real, or real. And that's going to happen until November, but you're becoming more empowered in your relationships through this retrograde period. Then we're going to have Mercury is going to move into what comes next. What comes next is this new moon in Taurus in your eighth house. So Mercury comes out of that square to Pluto and now brings a auspicious new moon on the 16th in its exaltation at 26 degrees in your eighth house, where you initiate a new, this can play out in many ways. It could be a new relationship and it's new intimacy, because it can be romantic with Venus ruling that. Or you initiate a new financial joint resource investment with a joint partner. Or just if you're single, you initiate a new investment opportunity opens up for you that you leap in on. This is an auspicious, abundant new moon. So if that happens, go for it. It's a good thing. What else can happen on that new moon? Um, It can be an opportunity, a financial opportunity comes in that enables you to completely eliminate and pay off a debt. Um, a finance, a new opportunity for investments we talk about, but also it could be that you refinance a property. But this is basically new beginnings in resources that come to you without job, not a job thing. Perhaps with that full moon in your second house in the beginning of the months has you terminate a job and you now start to invest your finances and money more as a way to make your income. That can happen too. Then we're going to have a powerful transit of Mars and Venus. Actually, sorry, first Mercury is going to move into your ninth house, conjoining Uranus, which could bring a surprising travel trip or surprising shift in your beliefs. Again, shocking, new information coming in that's going to shift your beliefs, open your mind up about a lot of things. Or you could travel and sell, or this could be that you suddenly shift your beliefs and you change your shall we say path, and you become more in alignment with something that is more your dharma, your what you really fills your cup, what you really want to do. And so Mercury is going to be there for about 3 weeks, and then we're going to have on the 19th, we're going to have Mars and Venus shift into the next signs. Venus is going to move into your 10th house in its beautiful energy, empathic energy, nurturing home energy of Cancer, where you could perhaps find a relationship if you're single through your work. It could now, Venus is making a sextile to Mars in your eighth. It could involve intimacy. It could also be that your work becomes more financially abundant, and then that Mars in your eighth house, you are able to really radically pay off a debt. Or you have your joint resources involved with your spouse, you're able to pour more finances into that because you have a nice planet transit, and you also do have Jupiter in your 10th, so that can very much expand your career. And you look good also just with Venus in your 10th house. Things are flowing and there's a lot of peace and calm and flow in your career. Now, Mars is going to make a square to Pluto, which again is in your fifth house, which could bring triggered and tension in friendships. Now, if you're single, this could be a transit where a friend becomes a true committed relationship and truths are revealed, and you discover that you have deeper feelings and it becomes intimate. Or there could be conflict in a friendship. You terminate a friendship, you get triggered, and a friend that you thought was a friend is not a friend, and it terminates. There's a variety of ways that that can play out. Of course, it depends on your chart if it's making contact. It could also be that you take bold initiatives to invest in finances, take risks, and you're no longer afraid because it squares Pluto. So your fears are over. You're more brave to take risks. And then that leaves us to the full moon in Sagittarius at the end of the month on the 28th or 29th. I forget which day. Looks like it is in the, let's see, where is the sun? That looks like the 29th. Or 31st. Yeah, it's at the actual last day of the month. So that brings you wonderful new beginnings in perhaps a media project. Let's get, I can't get that and be on Libra. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't line it up to the exact degree in this program, but this could be a new venture, a new inspired beginnings. Let's pull cards for Libra, a new inspired beginnings involving a business media project. You might start a website, or you may have been working on a website. It is now complete and you send it out into the world. What else can happen on a full moon in your, these cards are going to be for Libra for the whole month, not just for the full moon. But with that Mars squaring Pluto could bring a termination of something. Ending of the burden. We get that Justice card. Wow. So for Libras, you're ending some sort of negative, something that's ended that's been burdening you is over, over. Wow, quitting something. Interesting. Something that's been burdening you is you're taking some sort of radical shift and ending it. What else? Pregnancy for some Libras or marriage, commitment coming in with Saturn in your seventh house. I wonder what that burden, where that aligns with the astrology. I guess it's that squares, Pluto squares, where you're ending anything that burdens you, that causes you stress and burdens. What else is happening here for Libra? Pulling cards for Libra here. There's that fire energy, Aries. You've got planets in your seventh house. Well, if anybody, a Libra that is single is most likely going to end up in a positive new relationship or a committed situation is coming in. A sadness being over. There's a lot of joy coming into the life for ending sadness here. And I do get that Sun card and family. Wow. Yeah, because Saturn rules your fourth house. So a lot of joy in family happening for Libra. New commitments involving family with that Saturn ruling your fourth. So that's a really nice transit. And that full moon is going to make a trine to your seventh house in your third. So that could be relocation for many because of a relationship becoming more committed and sort of moving into a long-term living situations. And then this is a transformative month where you're having a lot of awakenings with Uranus in your ninth house, where new beliefs are suddenly coming in that are changing and shocking you and changing your beliefs about a lot of things and opening up your mind. All right, have a wonderful month, Libra. Namaste. Hello, Scorpio. This full moon in the beginning of the month starts out in your first house where you have some sort of big breakthrough, a big sort of revelatory, emotional, climactic, shall we say, realization as to who you really are and your identity changes. It's a good chance you feel very bold to initiate a new version of yourself and you break through some sort of lower density subconscious insecurity or lack of belief in yourself. And this full moon brings you into sort of a clearer vision as to why you're either being self, shall we say, destructive or not allowing the full version of you to shine. So this full moon sort of brings you into more bigger version of who you are. Now, the month begins with this is a very transformative month for you because your ruling planet is Mars and Pluto, and Mars is going to be making a square to Pluto, and your ruling planet, the outer ruling planet of Pluto, is going to go retrograde. So you are going to go through some sort of big internal transformation. Now, the full moon in your first house perhaps reveals some deep subconscious issues that need. Perhaps you do have an emotional outburst and you get triggered and you find that there is some work you need to do to heal within you so in order for you to become a fully more empowered version of yourself. But with Pluto going retrograde on the 7th, you are going through a 6 or 7 month period of inner transformation, which is then going to play out in the external world when it goes direct in November and you become a much more empowered, more confident version of yourself. Now, on the 3rd of the month, we're going to have Mercury moving into the sign of Taurus in your 7th house, which could bring communication in relationships or business connections, new clients, or if you're separate from a person, you could hear from them. What else? There could be, like I say, business dealings coming in. But the challenging thing will happen when Mercury moves into about 5 degrees and it will square Pluto in your fourth, where you could come into conflict with neighbors or a living situation could terminate. some sort of, and again, you may not feel this. It depends if it actually aspects one of your planets, but you could terminate a relationship, move out, and or it is possible you start a relationship and move into a situation with somebody, but this will create tension and perhaps conflict in relationships. A relationship that you have a contracted connection with, which can be a marriage partner, it can be a business client, and it could create, or it could just be triggering an issue that you have that comes back from your family lineage, a sort of ancestral wounding that you are here to clear for your family could get triggered. But that's not going to last forever. That's going to move on. Mercury is a quick moving planet. Then your ruling planet is going to go retrograde in your fourth house, where you are going to be doing a lot of reflecting on some of the psychological issues that have been passed down from your family, your mother lineage, and you're going to find a lot of healing during this period that Pluto is in retrograde. Again, it's going to transform you into your power. Then we're going to have that Mars squaring Mars squaring Jupiter in your eighth and in your sixth and your ninth house, where some sort of stress or tension in your career work or some sort of belief, it could be conflict with co-collaboratives in work over beliefs, or you quit a job and end a situation in your work so that you are more in alignment with your dharma, and you have and again, that full moon hitting in your first house could really waken you up to how you're not, shall we say, how you're not empowered. You don't, you have beliefs that you're not, you don't want to impose your beliefs, or you don't want to have confidence in your beliefs because you're not fully in your power. Well, you're now going to transform that, and you become very stable in your beliefs, confident about your beliefs, and you're willing to defend them, perhaps to a point of conflict. Now, what happens then? Then we're going to have Mercury, we're going to have that new moon in Taurus, which is going to be in your seventh house of relationships. So there is a good chance a new relationship initiates, a new client relationship could happen, a new romantic relationship could come in. You become very, very committed. This is a abundant, exalted new moon. So these are good clients and good, perhaps a marriage partnership comes in that would be auspicious for you, or shall we say, it's exalted, so it would be a good relationship, a good relationship. Um, or it could also be that you come into a soul contracted business venture with your relationship, with a very long-term committed connection that you have. Or if you are not in a relationship, it could be, again, a client, a new business client. Okay. Then we're going to have on the 18th, after that, we're going to have Mercury move into the Gemini house. That's going to happen on the 18th. And that is going to bring perhaps now this is going to form a square to Pluto in your fourth. So there could be a stressful situation around money and your rent or your mortgage, or you discover there's a tax, you're getting taxed on your property. It could trigger you about your feeling security, financial stability, or survivability. But again, Mercury is a quick moving planet. Um, I'm sorry, sorry, go back. Mercury, that's not happening. Let's start over. Mercury on the 18th now moves into your eighth house, which could bring joint resources because of this new beginning in a relationship. Perhaps you become committed and you join your resources. It is a very positive energy for Mercury to be in Gemini. It's conjoining Uranus, which could bring a shocking shift in your financial situation, most likely beneficial, unless that Mercury squaring Pluto in your seventh caused some sort of financial crisis. But I'm seeing that this looks pretty good for you, Scorpio, with Mercury in Uranus causing a sudden radical change in your life. Perhaps, like I say, a relationship becoming more committed could bring intimacy and also could bring positive communication, opening of the communication, allowing intimacy, allowing closeness to occur, and joint resources. So that will happen while Gemini is going to be in your eighth house, which also perhaps, I'm sorry, Mercury will be in your eighth house, which could also bring new beginnings in financial investments and or ideas around how you can leverage your money and your resources, like, for instance, refinancing a property. And perhaps that Mercury squaring the moon, squaring Pluto when it's in your seventh house makes you want to move. You feel like your living environment is toxic in some way, and you initiate a shift, a moving situation. Perhaps you apply for a second and you are planning to buy now to cohabitate with a new relationship, or even if it's a current relationship, this could trigger the desire to take on financial loan in order to purchase a property. So we talked about the new moon in Taurus, and then we're going to have a very powerful transit of Mars shifting into your seventh house, making a sextile to Venus and squaring Pluto. Now, that could bring conflicts in relationships. It could terminate a relationship if you're in the wrong one. It could You could be with this relationship that you're newly initiating, they could trigger you. Perhaps some fears rise up that you thought had been, like fears of jealousy or something you thought were healed, and they could get triggered and comes back. But again, this is to purge and to heal you and to sort of resolve these undercurrent energies that are causing blockages in your intimacy, or you're allowing somebody to be close. It could also terminate a business partnership if that's not good for you. Um, but because of this beautiful angle to Venus, I think peace is the dominating energy. Jupiter is in your ninth house, where your beliefs and your idea or your philosophical knowledge is expanding, and your understanding of the universe is expanding, and you are becoming more clear of what your dharma is, your true path, and it is expanding your life and bringing abundance because Jupiter is in its exaltation. With Venus there, there's a good chance you could be earning an income from these. This could improve your income because you have more clarity on your dharma, so it puts you on your true path, which is more auspicious. Also, this could instigate travel for you. It does make a trine to the nose in your fifth, which could really bring a shift in your destiny because you're aligning more with your dharma, which is what the nodes are all about. But this Mars in your seventh house could bring conflict in relationships. Disagreements can show up. But if you're in the right relationship, there's nothing to worry about. It can bring you closer because it resolves some of the barriers that are holding you guys a little bit apart. Or it could, like I say, terminate a relationship that is not right for you, and that is for your highest best. And then what else are we looking at? Also, with Mars making that sextile to Venus, will bring harmony through this conflict if you're in the right connection. And if you're not, it brings harmony in your life because you've ended its relationship. All right, so now let's take a look at the full moon. Oh, let me pull some cards here for Scorpio. All right, Scorpio. You're going to have the full moon Sagittarius. It's going to happen on May 31st, which is going to be in your, let's find your Sagittarius house, in your second house. Nice. So that will bring some sort of abundant, inspired new way of, or let's put it this way, a new moon that you may have initiated a new effort to bring in new sources of income now come to fruition. You're very inspired and excited about it. And it could free you up to travel with that Venus in your ninth and Jupiter, because this could reveal a beautiful source, a new source of income, or efforts you've made to improve your income now bear fruit. And I'm going to go more into detail with that full moon in a fall in a next post. Now we have the cards coming out. We have the Five of Swords, the Four of Swords, the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Pentacles, and the Tower card. I'm getting the Tower card a lot, you know. Those squares to Pluto are going to, and plus Mercury's going to join Uranus. So in your eighth house, where revelations and secrets could suddenly shock you and reveal, but it looks to me like you're pulling away from situations and ending situations that are not good for you, terminating, like I say, relationships or partnership agreements that are not really supporting you and bringing you the bounty that you deserve. Then you're finding more peace from this. You're finding a more peaceful way of operating by, again, with that Mercury squaring Pluto in your fourth, and then that Mars squaring Pluto, you're terminating situations that disturb your peace. Now we're finding you being much more financially in alignment because of that new moon in Taurus in your seventh house. Also connections, also because of that full moon in your first, you're valuing yourself more, plus that full moon in your second brings you into more sense of self-value, which then has a person treat you better, but or a relationship is starting to treat you better. Maybe you set boundaries with some of those squares, you're now being treated better, and it really surprises you. You're very surprised and shocked at a new financial independence because you've raised your vibrations by valuing yourself more, but also you're going to find that you're being treated better by a significant other person. Let's pull some more cards here for Scorpio. You're the Death card, and then we get the World card. You are totally transforming into releasing attachments. You know, that square to Mars and Pluto, those triggers are causing you to let go of attachment. Perhaps when Mars transits your seventh house, you get a little attached, and it causes energy clashes in your connections, but then that enables you to heal and sort of change and become detached, which then evolves you into the highest version of yourself. All right, Scorpio, hang in there. This is a month where you become very transformed and more in your power. So have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Sagittarius, this month begins with the full moon in Scorpio in your 12th house. So that's going to be some deep revelations coming up about your subconscious, just anything that's in your psyche body that is disturbing you, that needs sort of clearing and purging can come up on this full moon for you. And perhaps you become very much self-aware about some sort of habit or self-destructive patterns that are causing repeat, shall we say, setbacks in your life. So this is sort of a purifying full moon where you become aware of some inner things could come up here that show you, that bring you more into your power. You feel much more empowered from this full moon and sort of purges deeper layers of your psyche that are blocking your flow and your success. So that's a good full moon, really, even though it may feel intense and um, you could feel sort of irritated or frustrated during that process, but it is going to transform you into more into your power. Now, the beginning of the month starts off with that full moon, and then we're going to have Mercury move into the sign of Taurus on into your sixth house, which could bring some stresses because it will then square Pluto, and then Pluto's going to go retrograde. But with that Mercury squaring Pluto could bring tension and stress in your work environment that perhaps has you set boundaries and shall we say, you could quit a job during this. You could be in a job situation that you're in it just for survival, and you realize that you don't need it anymore, that you feel more empowered to take risks and start a new job. Again, Mars is going to make a transit there too, which could echo the same experience, or information or news comes in that causes conflict because the third house is business, people that are around you on a day-to-day that you're working with. So there could be tension and conflict in work situations. Again, this is going to transform you into more into your power, or shall we say, not allow you to tolerate things that are not respectful to you, that kind of energy. Now, also, Pluto is going to about to go. Oh, let's talk about the square to Jupiter in your eighth, where Jupiter is expanding can sometimes expand your debt, but with Mars there, it's possible that an opportunity comes in your fifth house that enables you to end that debt. Or you discover that there is a concern around your spending and you have to cut back your spending and start to chip away at a debt and sort of hold your purse strings back for a little bit. Now, it could also become a argument of beliefs and you get triggered by a friend and you could terminate a friendship during this transit, but there is potential for conflict around beliefs that trigger you with that eighth house. But this is in order to sort of break through perhaps certain friendships or relationships that are holding you back, that aren't evolving with you as you're evolving, that kind of thing. Um, but again, you could be feeling pretty confident with Jupiter there in its exaltation in your eighth house. So you're feeling like you don't need certain connections anymore anyway. So let's keep going here. So then we're looking at that's the Mars square Jupiter, which happens pretty much the whole of the first week until the 10th. And then we're going to have Pluto's going to go retrograde in your third house, where you're going to be doing a lot of inner reflection about knowledge and information that has come to you that has shifted your beliefs. Also, a lot of inner reflection about, it's going to be a lot of thinking involved there, where you reevaluate a lot of knowledge that you've learned and that you're learning, and whether it is, shall we say, true or not. And you're sort of weaving through information that may not be in alignment with your beliefs. But this is a period of introspection where you're growing on the inside. And it could also be about the way you communicate. You could also be reflecting on how you communicate in ways that are not truthful or not, that could be negative, that's coming from a source in you that isn't healed. And so you become aware of an area inside your psyche that you need healing so that you speak more sacredly or that you communicate better. So that's a long process. That's going to happen for about 7 months until Pluto goes direct in November, when you will have healed some sort of inner, and it could also be about the way you think, your thinking, the way you have negative thoughts about yourself could go through transformation here, where you then become more empowered and you're able to really sort of control your thoughts and your words better and your speaking, because Sagittarians can kind of put their foot in it. Is that the right way to say it? Put their foot in their mouth or something like that? All right. So then we're going to see Mercury is going to make, oh, first of all, let's talk about that new moon in Taurus in your sixth house, which could bring a very abundant, because new moon Taurus is exalted, which can bring an abundance of opportunities in your work environment, new opportunity coming in that brings you nice bounty, abundance of finances, or a very, so shall we say, a good, positive financial new beginning for you in your career, in an area that you're of service, and brings you stability in your finances. And then we're going to have Mercury. Did I talk about Mercury squaring? Yeah, we talked about Mercury. A tension in your work environment could bring the terminations of, it could also be that you just completely change the way you think because of some sort of information around work, or you get into a conflict over something you said that you wish you hadn't. It could be a variety of things. And of course, you may feel it more depending on whether you have planets there at that point, or you may not feel it at all. So then you have let's see, then we're going to have Venus and Mars. Venus is going to move into the sign of Cancer on the 19th, and then Mars is going to make a square to Pluto on that same time. But with Venus there in your eighth house, there is a good chance that you are able to smooth out this tension that's happening in your work environment or amongst work collaboratives. But Mars is going to square Pluto again. So again, that could be terminating of a work job situation or terminating a connection in work, like quitting a job, or you could say something that causes conflict with people that are around you at work that trigger you, that show you have some internal work to do. But this is a stressful transit. A lot of people don't like these transits. But again, if you don't have any planets there, you may not even feel it. And even if you do have a few, you can just sort of try to be mellow and grounded and calm. And just if you have said something that you wish you didn't, you can kind of take it back and apologize. These transits can be ironed out when we're aware, which is why astrology helps us. And also, Jupiter is in its exaltation in your ruling planet. So it is helping you and it is having you transform your fears and for you, and it is helping you trust in the universe more and help you relax more. So just relax through these challenging transits. Try not to, you may need to learn how to master some of your stress issues because this is a house of stress, and Mars there can bring conflict in your work environment. So you may have to learn how to manage some of your stress here. So then we're going to have a nice angle, though, to Venus, which causes the ability to create peace. So, and that is hitting in your house of sort of Pluto, of fears and deep psyche issues. So, whatever triggers that, whatever issue that happens with that Mars to Pluto evens out through perhaps you're having healed some of your inner fears around stability and financial security or survivability. You're going to be okay. You're going to realize that you have mastered some fears around your fears of survival. And also, these transits pull you into your power. You may set a boundary for somebody who's not treating you well in work, and you're setting boundaries. And then that brings you peace. So this can play out in a variety of ways. And if you want a reading, feel free to contact me. So we're pulling cards for Sagittarius. Now there's going to be a beautiful full moon at the end of the month at about 12 degrees in Sagittarius, where you become a more real version of yourself, or who you really are becomes more expanded. You see who you really are, perhaps as a result of some of these stresses that are occurring with the Mercury squaring Pluto and the Mars squaring Pluto. You feel more empowered. And then with that full moon in your first house, you're inspired to be the full version of yourself and shine. And you feel very inspired about your life and a new identity. You step forward boldly into a sort of more confident version of yourself, and your identity takes on a new shape. A lot of times a full moon in your first house, you have a different, you change your hairdo. So here we have the Two of Swords cards, then the Ace of Cups. Oh, I forgot to talk about Mercury and Gemini in your seventh house, where there is auspicious flow and opportunities coming in because Mercury is in its own sign, which can bring in a relationship if you're not in one. It can bring if you're meeting people, you could meet your new relationship. This could also be, this is a house of clients. You could get new clients and a lot of business through clients. You could get business through a relationship that you're in. Um, This is very auspicious, brings you abundance, and you're communicating well. Your ability to communicate in relationships. Maybe you and your partner have a good period of open communication that flows very well and improves your relationship. We get this for some people, if you don't see it perhaps, but a true love, maybe you know somebody that is, you know them, but now they communicate and they tell you they love you. And so then that things move very quickly. And this also can be a travel opportunity showing up here, but also energies move quickly into peace with that Venus in your eighth house. Perhaps conflict in a relationship uh, eases up through communication and things go rapidly into peaceful situation between the two of you. And again, this can involve business partnerships as well. We get the Wheel of Fortune, so your dharma is changing, your destiny is turning into abundance with that Jupiter. That's the Sagittarius full moon, ruled by Jupiter, bringing you a nice tilt in your destiny towards abundance, your true calling, your Jupiter, which is your abundance, where your abundance is in your chart. And then we've got that ending of the negative thinking with that Pluto in retrograde in your third house, causing you to really evaluate the way you process thoughts and that are unempowering for you, and also maybe communicating and in ways that are unempowering for you. All right, Sagittarius, have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Capricorn, this month begins with a beautiful, powerful full moon in your 11th house, which can possibly bring clarity and truths and revelations about groups of friends that perhaps are not in alignment with you. And you could have a transformative experience through connections and social networking groups. It could be bad or good, and if it's bad, it's for the best. They're not in alignment with your beliefs and where you're headed, and it's going to free you up for more supportive groups. But also, it could be that have made you've made new beginnings, or you've initiated new starts in a Scorpio new moon there, and now your social media platform culminates and creates more visibility. Um, this full moon in your 11th house can bring a clash in beliefs between relationships, because we are going to have a Mars square Pluto, I'm sorry, a Mars square Jupiter in your seventh house, which could bring conflicts in your home and or with a relationship. But again, this would be conflicts of belief, and you could decide to move, or this could be a conflict with a mother, an argument, or a relationship that you're in, like a partnership agreement. And so it could terminate a relationship, but again, this frees you up for a more supportive tribe group and more supportive relationship. It could have you move, or somehow, this could also be that you initiate a relationship, and then your living situation changes. You move together, you live together. So there's a lot of ways that this can play out. But the Mars squaring Mars in your fourth could have you being fighting or combative, combative with mother, um, or family over beliefs. Or, like, for instance, let's say your mother doesn't approve of your relationship, that kind of a thing could have you either terminate the relationship with your mother, or you do realize that this relationship isn't right, so you terminate the relationship. But all in all, this is all about transforming your beliefs and transforming your relationships, and you're becoming more empowered. So you're ending situations that are not empowering for you, and you're going through a transformation. And so, whatever knowledge or whatever revelation comes through this full moon in your 11th house has you transform. It's going to initiate a long period of inner transformation, because Pluto's going to go retrograde in your second house, where you're going to become very aware of areas where you don't value yourself and you don't see your true worth. Now, before Pluto goes retrograde, we're going to have a Mercury enter Taurus, squaring Pluto. So, in your fifth house, perhaps a friendship goes through a challenge, um, or you could get triggered from a friend could trigger your feelings of low self-worth, or you become aware that you're not valuing yourself, and you could terminate a friendship there, or a friendship that is really a relationship that that is going to evolve into a romantic, committed situation, it becomes clear that it's no longer a friendship, that it is a romance. But, or you could find, because this is your income house, you could find that you change as you become more as Pluto is in retrograde, you become more and more value, you see your value more, that you terminate some sort of friendships that aren't really valuing you. I think I said that already. Or or you initiate a new entrepreneurial venture that that heals your inner fears of financial survival. So there's a lot of ways this can play out. But all in all, you're evolving into more valuing of yourself, which is then going to reflect all over your life. When Pluto goes direct in November, you will have had an inner transformation, which will then change your life externally and bring you much more prosperity in that second house. So, and also that Mercury transit may not be, is only a quick transit because Mercury is a speedy little planet. And so this is a month of transformation. So all these conflicts that can occur in this month are empowering, ultimately empowering for you. And also, it's possible that you're setting boundaries with mother and friends more, that you may have friends you've had that don't necessarily reflect your new sense of self-value. And then we are going to have this new moon in Taurus in your fifth house. Now, that's potential for pregnancy for some. A relationship could transform, a friendship could transform into a romantic relationship here. This is a romantic energy for sure. Or it is a new entrepreneurial venture coming in that will bring you some feelings of liberation financially and stability financially. And then we're going to have Mercury is going to move into the sign of Gemini here. Let's get to that. Mercury is going to move into the sign of Gemini after this new moon, hit Uranus, which could bring you surprising news about a business. You could make a lot of sales if you're selling something. It could bring you knowledge and information that helps you, new ideas that can bring this new entrepreneurial venture that you are initiating, if that's what's happening for you. It could bring a lot of ideas about how to expand it, how to sell it, how to advertise it. Also, communication can around work, and your work can really be very abundant. You could start writing something, but this is a very powerful, with Mercury in its own sign in your sixth, can bring you very good, abundant progress in your work and an ease of flow of knowledge, information, writing, commerce, communication, media. Social media could really take, you could initiate a new social media site that suddenly works really, really well if that's hitting some planets for you. Because again, these reports are not on your own personal chart, so I don't. So it depends on whether you have planets directly aspecting some of these transits. And then we have the the beautiful transit of Mars and Venus. Now, Venus entering into your seventh house, if you're single, could bring in a wonderful relationship. Also, Jupiter is transiting your seventh house, so it's a good, that often does bring a true love relationship, your spouse, if you're a woman, and if you're a man, expands, your relationships can expand through that Jupiter transit, clients expand, meeting people, and so that Mercury conjoining Uranus could have you suddenly meet a true partner, a love through social media networking that can happen, or just through work, a sudden surprising shock, because Venus is going to make a nice angle to Mars. So you could meet someone there in your fifth house, which turns into a romantic relationship. But also, Venus, if you're in a relationship, This is just a supportive energy for getting clients, good making contracts. Is a good time to sign contracts and making a nice angle to Mars. Again, taking initiative in friendships, meeting new people that are auspicious and supportive of your business ventures, or a friend turns into a romance. Again, that theme could happen. But Mars will square Pluto too, which is pretty tense. And that's going to happen. Let me get back onto Capricorn here. Mars is going to square Pluto in that second house, which could create potential triggering and fears, again, perhaps through friendships or through this could trigger your fears of abundance potentially, and that survivability. But again, it transforms you, and then you realize that you are not valuing yourself perhaps, or seeing your worth totally. And so this transit will again transform you in that way and empower you to be more abundant in the long run. And this could be conflict with friends. So just, take it easy, as they say. So let's pull some cards for Capricorn. Now you're going to have a very nice full moon in the sign of Sagittarius, which will be in your 12th house. So there could be a potential for travel, or you discover that you are, because that full moon reveals some deeper issues. Perhaps these triggers are showing you that you've got some healing to do, some issues that are repeat, that stem in some of your, shall we say, um, reasons that you're getting triggered, and you make connection with it and because remember, we're transforming in these energies, you're becoming a more empowered version of yourself. So so yes, also it's a hermit energy. So wow, interesting. So that full moon in Sagittarius and also the full month really brings you clarity. You've been trying to work something out about your actions that have been out of alignment, or what actions are in alignment. And in this hermiting energy of that full moon, it brings you complete clarity as to what actions have been out of alignment and how to align yourself more towards your true dharma. And something you haven't seen now becomes seen. And we get that world card where you release attachments, perhaps those squares to your Pluto to your fifth house is releasing attachments and control issues over your connections and friendships, and you become much more in your power by letting go and detaching. So this all in all is listen, if it is if it is a challenging month with all those triggers, all in all, it is going to transform you into a much more empowered version of yourself. So it's sort of medicine. It's the medicine we don't like, but it's not a bad month. A lot of good things are happening. Perhaps a romance opens up, and if you're single, if you're in a relationship, there's sort of a pink bubble period in your relationship. So some of these challenging transits are not really dominating the entire month. You're becoming a better, more empowered version of yourself. All right, Capricorn, have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Aquarius, this month begins with a full moon in your 10th house, which brings a clarity and a revelatory experience about your work. It could tell you that you want to end your job. It may be that you want to you discover that it's that you're sort of you're in the job because your fear of survival, so you're just sort of plowing through the job because you don't think you can survive in another way, or you're in that job just for survival. And it kind of it's not it's bringing you there's tension and emotional build up in this situation that isn't right for you. So it could be sort of a big culmination of clarity, or an emotional outburst, or a crisis of some sort that shows you that you need to change your job, or your energy in the job force, and you become more in your power, and that you're giving your power away to the job or your colleagues. And so this is a transformative full moon that does put you more into your power and shifts you out of maybe fear-based energies around your work. Um, so this full moon does happen with a Mars squaring, sorry, let's go back to that, with a Mars squaring Jupiter. And Jupiter's in your house of stress and career and work. So there could be arguments and disputes going on in your, it sounds like a hard month, but it's not. It's a good month. These situations are clearing there could be a dispute or argument which then clears a undercurrent of tension, which needs to be cleared up. And it might be uncomfortable and it might be awkward, but it does free up the tension. Or if that's not what's happening for you, you decide to quit your job. Again, that could happen. And align with something that's much more in your dharma. You have clarity from that full moon, what you do truly want to do for your career. You now know what is your career. You now end certain a job or the people that are normally around you on a day-to-day change because of that. But also this is conflicts in beliefs, perhaps in work environment or with people that are around you on a day-to-day. And this could be a clashing of beliefs, which then could be another reason you decide to change your career if that's how this plays out, or you are afraid of communicating your true beliefs because you're afraid of conflicts and you get over that because you're feeling bold with Mars there in Aries in your third house, and you go ahead and break through that fear of communicating your beliefs. And that's not that doesn't have to, maybe people are surprised. Maybe it comes with a little bit of conflict, but it doesn't have to play out really that bad at all. It's just also information can come in from from that third house, from information, news, communication that really shocks you and changes your beliefs about about your dharma and your work, and changes your ideas and your path, and you become more shifted onto an aligned path for you, and you shift the way you're being of service so that it's more, shall we say, humanitarian, in alignment with your humanitarian goals, which are all usually Aquarians are seeking a humanitarian, shall we say, purpose. Now, Mercury in all of this is going to be making a square to Pluto, which is in your first house. So there could, again, that could bring a tension that could add to this sort of communication conflict if that's how it's playing out, or just a shift in your, because Mercury in your fourth house perhaps has you at home in your family situation, could bring conflicts in your home and family situation. But again, or it conflict or communication ends your, see, with Pluto in your first house, you're becoming very empowered. You're believing in yourself and you're stepping forward. You're transforming into a more confident, bold version of yourself. And it may cause conflicts in your home because you've become much more empowered, right? So that's not a long transit. That does, you may not even feel it if you don't have any planets there. And then Mercury will continue to transit your fourth house, where you perhaps there's going to be a new moon there in your fourth house. So perhaps you are getting ideas and to perhaps initiate a new living situation, to move, with Mars squaring that third house where you're terminating, you could be ending, moving out of a neighborhood and ending and no longer being around certain people that you're usually around. So you may move, and then with Jupiter into that sextiling that Mercury there is definitely some nice things happening for you in your work because of that Jupiter in your sixth, expanding your career opportunities, your work opportunities, but also your health is improving, or health issues can sometimes show up with a Jupiter in the sixth, but it is so that you can expand and improve your health. Um, so there are some shifts and changes around your living situation with that Mercury and that new moon starting in your fourth house, bringing you or you could like sell a property that brings you a lot of money because this is an exalted new moon in your fourth. You could decide to decorate your home. You're going to be feeling like making your home more beautiful and nice because that's a Venus energy. So you're wanting to enhance your living situation. You could be spending a little bit more time in home with the sun there and Mercury there. So that new moon brings you auspicious abundance through property, real estate, home, family. There's that Five of Wands, perhaps conflict with that squares to Pluto, because we are also going to have a Mars squaring that, which I'm about to get to. Now, Gemini, did I talk about? We're now going to look at Gemini moving into your Mercury, sorry, Gemini. Mercury moving into Gemini on that is the 18th. So let's get to the 18th. Let's get you back onto your house here. Um, And that's going to be in your fifth house. So some people may find that they are suddenly surprised and are pregnant with Uranus there. Or you could have sudden surprising opportunity come in, auspicious opportunities through friendships, through connections that you know. Now, if you're single, you could suddenly meet your person as a surprise through social media or through what do you call it, website, dating site. You could suddenly meet someone. So if you're single, you may try it out. Um, You could discover that a friend that is a friend, they communicate feelings that are more than just a friend, and then this becomes a relationship. What else? You could suddenly get a really powerful, new, exciting idea for a media writing project or an entrepreneurial business idea comes through to you, maybe connected to that new moon in your fourth, bringing you, perhaps you refinance a property and you now have money to invest into a new idea, into because that Mercury goes in just a couple of days after the new moon, so it could be very well connected. So you want to invest in some sort of entrepreneurial venture, or it could be a film project, creative project, some kind of creative self-expression writing project, or it can also be selling something. Commerce is Gemini. We get the Six of Wands here. We get this is party fun. You Aquarians are so social, so you're going to be having a lot of fun with friends. Gemini is Mercury, fun time with youthful energy with friends, victory over some sort of challenges that those squares have been making. You could have a breakthrough in a friendship, some sort of a breakthrough involving friendships that you see, I get this, there's that entrepreneurial venture. Um, you could co-collaborate, with other creatives. Like it could be a film project. Now, with Pluto going retrograde in your first house, you are really reevaluating. Ooh, the Ten of Pentacles. That's nice. Ten of Pentacles. Something you've been hanging in there with work now starts to build its abundant results. But also with Pluto in retrograde in your first house, you're becoming more you're evaluating yourself, you're looking in, you're sort of reflective, self-reflective, and going through a very powerful transformation where you're going to come out of it much more in your power when Pluto goes direct in November. So for about a 7 month period, you're becoming a much more empowered version of yourself, and your identity is going to change. And also that can bring up some health problems, but that because your body is your first house is your first house. Fool card comes up, Tower. So it's like you're going to quit situations that aren't, you're going to have more faith in yourself, and you're going to believe in yourself, and you're not going to be holding on to jobs and situations that are survival based. You're going to feel like you've got the world in your hands. And then you've got this powerful, sudden, shocking new beginnings with that Uranus energy, perhaps quitting jobs or friendships that are not reflecting that you may have been involved in just out of survival mentality. Then we get this buoyancy of your energy and abundance. And again, this venture, co-collaborative venture, creative projects bringing you abundance. And again, that's also the Ten of Pentacles can be that fourth house, that new beginning in Taurus. So that brings us to the challenging transit of Mars in your fifth. I'm sorry, Mars in your fourth, squaring Pluto in your fourth, in your first, where you could be having conflicts with family members, a mother, a landlord, neighbors, or you could literally move out of a house that it's possible you really, that you sell a property in that energy and let's pull a card on that Mars square Pluto, because Mars is going to square Pluto in that last week where there could be tensions around you and family or your home living situation. There could be some sort of problem with a property or taxes or some kind of bill comes in that kind of triggers your sense of survivability. But it is part of this process of you becoming more empowered. You may have to set a boundary with a mother or set a boundary with somebody in your family, a brother or someone that's not respecting you, and that you then are seeing that this transformative work that you're doing on the inside is starting to it's going to initiate that journey. Um, so there is that conflict card, we get that tower card, and then we get that new beginnings. So it's like whatever conflicts show up for you in this month, they are transforming you to become a more empowered version of yourself, to not be walked over, to not be sort of like unrespected. And you're going to do it in a good way. This isn't necessarily negative. And again, Venus, I forget to mention, Venus is moving into Cancer, into your sixth house, where you're going to feel peace and ease through all of this. So there is some sort of shining silver lining in this transformative experience, which then flows into peace and harmony around. This is a house of tension, stress, and work. So there's an ease for the rest of the month after these bumps where you feel like whatever had to happen enabled you to either set a boundary or terminate something or take on a confrontation and deal with something, which then evolves you and brings you into a sense of flow and peace. Because this month is about transforming lower density energies into higher frequencies. So whatever is in your psyche body that is causing you to have stress is going to be freed and healed. A certain amount of it will be, which again, most of it will happen during the period that Pluto is in retrograde for until November. But these transformations are going to show you that the more that you are in your power, the less stresses that are going to happen in your life. So Sagittarius in your 11th house, this full moon, let's pull some cards for the full moon. Oh, we got the World card. There's that Peace card. You see, that's the 11th house. That's Sagittarius. That's the house of hope. So there's a lot of optimism coming your way around that full moon in the 11th house. So some sort of peace. You figure out how to soothe your stresses, but also that's going to bring you higher vibrations. And also perhaps there's attachment to careers, and because of that full moon in your 10th, you're releasing attachments, which really brings you abundant cards, like being paid. This is like being paid in abundance. That's inspiration. So you're this transformation that happens in this month for you, then sort of clear some lower frequency densities that are holding back your sense of inspiration and joy and excitement in life. And then we get all this sort of waking up energy to that release of attachment of basically these transits are releasing your attachment to things that you're holding on to that you think are your survival, then and really that's going to open you up to higher frequency energies. You're evolving into a more higher frequency version of yourself through all of this. All right, Aquarius, have a wonderful month. Namaste. All right, Pisces, the full moon in Scorpio is happening in your ninth house. And that could bring a big shift and revelation in your beliefs in a big way. You may suddenly have perhaps a conflict because your ruling planet is squaring Mars during the first part of this month. So there could be conflicts in beliefs, or conflict in friendships or relationships around finances, but that shift which actually really could transform your sense of self-value. You could have a revelation that you're not valuing yourself enough, and that a conflict in a relationship could show that, which then sort of wakes you up to one, you could see that you're not valuing yourself enough, and now that you value yourself more, you see that you really are good enough for your dharma, your dream job, your true calling. So that could bring that full moon in your ninth house can bring you to sort of some big awakening and awareness as to what your true path is as you increase your sense of value with all these transits in your second house. Um, and again, a friend could trigger that for you with that Mars square your second house and your fifth house. You could terminate a relationship over financial struggles, or a friendship that is, it could just be that you just have a clash in beliefs. You and a friend, you could have a verbal conflicts around beliefs. It could not even be that big of a deal at all. Okay, it just sort of depends on your transits or your placements in your chart, the planets that you have. Now, with Jupiter in your fifth house, your friendship groups are expanding rapidly. You're meeting lots of friends. If you're a musician, for instance, you're finding your bandmates. You're finding your collaboratives. Now, this could also be a full moon where you have an opportunity to travel, and you discover that you do have the ability to travel. Some sort of financial advancements is happening for you, so it opens the doors for travel. Or perhaps that is part of your work that you travel. An opportunity opens up through travel to improve your finances. So that is the beginning of the month. That's the way the month opens up for you. And then we're going to get to Mercury is going to move into the sign of Taurus, squaring Pluto in your 12th house, where you will have a psychological transformation. It's possible that somebody says something to you that triggers you, and it could again be a conflicting, cause conflicts. I know that's hard to talk about or bring up, but this is going to transform you, and you're going to be aware that you have a low self-esteem trigger point, or it becomes clear that you're self-sabotaging your life through what you say and speak. And so this is going to transform that. You're going to become more aware of these things, because Pluto after that is going to go retrograde, where you're going to spend a good 7 months until Pluto goes direct in November, where you're really reevaluating your self-destructive ways or psychological internal beliefs that are blocking your success. And some of these triggers are going to show that you have a habit, perhaps, of thinking and speaking in ways that are not putting you in the best light, or that you are not really fully believing in yourself, or that you have bad habits of negative thinking. Pisces can have doomsday thinking. And so that is going to transform. And it could, and these things that show up here, because Mars is going to do the same thing here, are there to transform you into a new way of thinking and speaking that are more supportive of you and less damaging of you, if that makes sense. So that's how the month is going to begin. And then that's going to initiate an internal transformation where you become a much more empowered version of yourself. Then we will have Mercury. We have that Mercury in your second house, where you're going to be focusing on your media projects, your social media, communicating, writing, selling, Also, by the way, Mercury there could have you in conflict with people that you're working with or people that are around you on a day-to-day, neighbors, just giving you a heads up. And again, you may not feel it at all if you have no planets there. You won't feel it. Maybe it's just mild. And then we have this beautiful new moon in Taurus in your third house, where you will discover or come up with some new auspicious ideas. Now, you could also be selling. This is the third house of commerce. It's business. You could start a new social media platform. You could start a new business, a new writing project, media. And again, this is an exalted new moon, so it brings you abundance. It could also be a new job, it could also be a new car. You could get a new car. Third house is driving, fourth house is also a new car, um, but auspicious new beginnings around perhaps a new business and ideas also. It can just be new ideas that bring you abundance. All right, so then we're going to look at, we talked about the Pluto retrograde. And we talked about the new moon there in your third house. And now let's look at Mercury is going to then move into the sign of Gemini into your fourth house, conjoining Uranus, which would bring a shocking, surprising, perhaps change in your family situation. With Jupiter in your fifth, you could find out you're pregnant, or you could have a shocking shift and change in your living environment. You suddenly decide to move. What else could happen there? Um, there could be news or information. Now, Mercury in its Gemini house is very, very strong. So this is going to be very positive, and it could bring a flow of opportunities through family, through neighbors where you're living. Like let's say you've got roommates, perhaps a beautiful opportunity comes in through a roommate that you know. Or a writing project at home. You go home and you start in your extra time, start writing, and you've got all these ideas coming in with that Uranus. And you could suddenly decide to change and shift the electronics in your house, rewire your house, your electrical system in your house. Um, but this is a transit that brings abundance through your living home situation, a flow. Also, it could bring just good communication and a good time in communication with your family and people that you live with. Or it could be that you do initiate a family here with that energy. You suddenly, like I say, you get pregnant and you're initiating families. So let's pull cards for Pisces. Now, the next transit we have the next day, we have that Mars in your third, and that is going to build a square to Pluto in your, again, this is going to activate that same issue where you could get into conflict with people that are around you because you get triggered because of that Pluto in retrograde in your 12th, which then reveals that you have some inner healing to do where you get triggered pretty easily around your sense of value because Taurus is that, and it just shows you that you've got to transform yourself on the inside and believe in yourself. And it could be that you say something because that's the third house. You could have accidentally said something, or somebody accidentally said something to you that causes conflict. But there is a beautiful angle with Venus, which just moved into your fifth house, which could bring a relationship, um, or bring in new friends, or a lot of empathic and softness between your relationships. So it could resolve pretty quickly, and peace is restored because Venus is the energy of peace, and it's making a nice angle there. So perhaps if there was conflicts in your relationships, in your romantic relationships, they're resolved and things flow back to ease, and you realize you're just triggered because you've got some sensitivities that you're working on, which will then be healed and resolved by the time Pluto goes direct. Because this is a month of transformation where we're being transformed into our power. And so a sense of empowerment will be coming as a result of all of this. So let's pull some cards. Also, you're going to have, there is your, that's a Sagittarius card. Also, we're going to have a full moon at the very end of the month in the sign of Sagittarius, which is going to be in your 10th house of career. Beautiful. Where you have this brand new, exciting, new, inspired career opportunity coming in, that expands your, shall we say, gives you higher visibility, can give you a job promotion. That's the card that represents your 10th house there, Sagittarius. And Jupiter, your ruling planet, being in exaltation, brings you a nice financial independence, an increase in your finances, where you're starting to feel very financially independent. And again, a lot of these fears that get triggered by that Pluto is a fear of survival, which I think goes away on that full moon because we're getting some nice abundant cards. And there is, and victory, victory, sun card. Wow, awesome, Sagittarius. I mean, Pisces. Your planet ruled by Jupiter brings you a lot of auspiciousness and abundance. Wow, awesome. You're gonna become, and we do get this nice family card here. So that's that Mercury and Uranus in your fourth house. So you become very aware that your thinking and your speaking causes you the stress that isn't there. There's your Sagittarius card. So you're becoming more in alignment and aware that a lot of your stresses and fears are self-imposed, and that's a sort of self-sabotaging energy that creates fearful experiences in your life that you now sort of leave behind. You find sort of, you've been very patient, Pisces, for a while for something to materialize for you, which now looks like it's going to materialize in that full moon because it's ruled by Jupiter and you are Jupiter ruled, and that full moon is hitting in your 12th house. So wonderful things are happening for you this month, Pisces. I have to say, I think you have one of the best readings here. All right, have a wonderful month, Pisces. Namaste.